Blue Star Calendar Year 287, Awakening of Insects. Today marks one of the most important days across Blue Star, the awakening of the Divine Kingdoms. Inside the gymnasium of Qingchuan No. 3 Awakener High School, the awakening stone glows with milky, white radiance. 600 senior year students line up by class. Tension and excitement hang thick in the air. Lin Shi stands within Class 7's formation, clenching his fists, just as nervous as everyone else. His hands tighten, relax, then tighten again. Su Qingyuan. Names of soon to awaken students are being called from the podium. A stir ripples through the crowd. A girl with a high ponytail walks onto the stage. She is the legitimate daughter of the Su family of Qingchuan City. Her family runs mining businesses that have taken root in Qingchuan for 3 generations, boasting substantial wealth. Rumor says she has been nourished with medicinal herbs since childhood. She always ranks first in her grade, yet she is as cold as ice. Boys privately call her the Ice Beauty, and very few dare to strike up a conversation with her. Su Qingyuan places her palm upon the awakening stone, which emits soft light and gradually wraps around her. A light curtain connected to the stone snaps open. An endless silver, white ice plain unfolds. An ice crystal palace slowly rotates above the snowfield. Thousands of ice, blue spirit clansmen drop to one knee. Their features resemble humans, yet their skin is semi-transparent ice crystal, each wielding ice blades and longbows. Chill surges outward, making those in the front row shiver. Talent: Ice Spirit Root. Rank: A grade. Divine Kingdom Area: 300,000 square kilometers. Retainers: A grade. Ice Spirit Clan. The whole venue erupts. A grade. Both talent and retainers are A grade. According to Federation ratings, A grade is the genuine genius threshold. No one of this caliber has appeared in Qingchuan City for 10 years. Nearly 3,000 retainers right from the start, plus a built-in palace. Su Qingyuan pulls her hand away and walks off the stage with a blank expression. Her gaze sweeps over the crowd without lingering on anyone. Zhou Hao. The podium calls for the next student to step forward. A burly boy strides onto the stage. The Zhou family owns Qingchuan's largest orc breeding farm on the outskirts of town. His father Zhou Debiao employs 3 Great Awakeners and possesses enormous assets. Spoiled by wealth, Zhou Hao often acts arrogantly, always surrounded by a handful of followers. Back in grade 1, he demanded Lin Shi give up his seat in the cafeteria. Lin Shi refused and ignored him. From then on, Zhou Hao bore a grudge against Lin Shi, seizing every chance to humiliate him. He slams his palm onto the awakening stone. A crimson light curtain bursts open. Scorching heat rolls out across a wasteland of sand-blown yellow soil. More than 2,000 orcs roar wielding axes. Standing over 2 meters tall on average, they are heavily muscled, bare torso, their faces painted with blood-red totems. The chieftain at the front carries a massive stone hammer, towering far above the rest of the orcs. When he bellows, the several animal, hide tents nearby tremble. Talent: Berserk Blood. Rank: B grade. Divine Kingdom Area: 80,000 square kilometers. Retainers: B grade. Orc Tribe. Zhou Hao laughs loudly and marches off the stage, chest out. As he passes Lin Shi, he deliberately rams his shoulder hard against him. Lin Shi staggers, but says nothing. Your turn next. Try not to get weak-kneed. Zhou Hao grins, revealing uneven teeth. If you end up with F grade, you can come work at my family's breeding farm. We'll feed you. His followers snicker in unison. Lin Shi ignores him and walks onto the stage. He presses his right hand against the awakening stone. The light curtain spreads wide. A desolate yellow-brown plain stretches out, dotted with sparse gray-green moss as far as the eye can see. Nothing else exists across the plain. No buildings, no mountains, no rivers. 200 thumb-sized off. White insects shuffle aimlessly within their nest, their mouth parts resembling rusted shears. The result is announced swiftly. Talent: Reproduction Lineage. Rank: D grade. Divine Kingdom Area: 1 million square kilometers. Retainers: F grade. Rift Tier Insects. Silence falls over the venue for 1 second. A D grade talent paired with 1 million square kilometer Divine Kingdom looks utterly mismatched. Voices of discussion roar loud enough to shake the gymnasium roof. 1 million square kilometer Divine Kingdom. That's enough territory even for an A grade. Why only D grade talent? Rift Tier Insects? Textbooks label them the lowest class insect species. They have no awareness and zero potential. Aren't retainers supposed to be sentient races? Only C grade and above possess intelligence. Weren't you paying attention in class? Such vast land wasted raising bugs. Zhou Hao laughs loudest of all, slapping his thigh repeatedly. Laughter echoes all around. The recording teacher frowns and shakes his head. Down below, Chun Wanqing, head teacher of Class 7, stands with her arms folded, her lips pressed into a thin line. A.B. Grade Wind, Element Awakener with 10 years of teaching experience. She is fair, minded, and values talent deeply. Staring at that million-square-kilometer territory and the F grade rating, she sighs softly. Lin Shi pulls his hand away and walks off the stage with a calm face. No one notices him pause briefly as he descends the steps. The instant the light curtain fades, a hum resonates inside his mind, as if something long dormant has been activated. A cold, immense, ancient will surges into his consciousness like a river of stars pouring down. Dark, gold text emerges. SSS, grade unique talent, gene devour, and evolution, unlocked. Initial retainers, Rift, 10M-Insects. Divine Kingdom, global time acceleration, 10 times. Unlimited evolution ceiling. Devour to evolve. Insect Hive automatically upgraded to Prime Evolution Hive, SSS, grade. Lin Shi's breath catches slightly. Within the Federation rating system, SS, grade is the highest rank on record, possessed by no more than 5 individuals across Blue Star. SSS, grade, textbooks briefly mention it as theoretically possible, yet never achieved by anyone. He returns to his formation and shuts out all surrounding noise. Zhao Lei, a stocky boy, trots onto the stage. Zhao Lei's father runs a suburban pig farm, vastly smaller in scale compared to the Zhou family's operations. Raised helping raise livestock, he is quick, witted, and Lin Shi's best friend since junior high school. A green light curtain unfurls, a lush water, rich grassland. More than 60 yaks graze, thick, skinned, and sturdy. Over 400 fine, wool sheep scatter across another stretch, their white fleece swaying in the breeze. 3 black-backed, white-bellied shepherd dogs race across the grassland on patrol, and a stream winds along the edge. Talent, reproduction lineage, rank, D grade. Divine Kingdom area, 50,000 square kilometers. Retainers, D grade yaks, fine, wool sheep, shepherd dogs. Zhao Lei scratches his head and walks down, grimacing as he moves beside Lin Shi. D grade talent and D grade retainers. Same boat as you, fellow unlucky guy. Lin Shi claps him on the shoulder. Dozens more students take the stage afterwards. Most receive D grade or E grade ratings. An occasional C grade draws short bursts of amazement. At the end of the ceremony, Chen Wanqing steps onto the podium to make several announcements. Divine Kingdom Management tutorial classes will start next week. Awakener ratings D grade and above qualify for school resource subsidies. A prosperity assessment monthly exam will be held on March 27th. Every student receives a copy of Introductory Guide to Divine Kingdom Management. The assembly disperses. Before leaving, Zhou Hao mouths a phrase toward Lin Shi, Bug King. Lin Shi does not look his way. Outside the gymnasium, the March wind still carries a chill. Zhao Lei jogs over and slings an arm around his neck. Come on, my treat for noodles. D grade doesn't mean you can't make it. My old man is E grade and still runs a decent farm. Not today. I've got things to get done at home. Lin Shi is burning to test his SSS, grade talent, and cares for nothing else. I'll catch up with you later. He offers no further explanation and heads toward the bus stop. Zhao Lei scratches his head, watching his back. He knows Lin Shi well. When Lin Shi does not wish to talk about something, nothing can force him to speak. At the bus stop, he flips open his Introductory Guide to Divine Kingdom Management. A line is printed on the title page. Talent sets your ceiling. Management defines your true height. Talent rating. The Federation categorizes awakeners by potential from F grade up to S grade. Ratings determine one's developmental potential. He stares at the word potential for a moment, thinking of his hidden SSS grade panel. A ceiling? His ceiling is something the Federation itself has never measured. He keeps reading. Time flow. Since divine kingdoms exist in dimensions separate from Blue Star's main world, their time flows differently. Under ordinary circumstances, 1 day in Blue Star's main world equals 1 year within a divine kingdom. Faith points. Every retainer serves as their awakener's follower. Followers are sorted into 3 tiers: nominal followers, true followers, and fanatical followers. Awakener realms: awakening realm, demigod realm, lesser god, intermediate god, greater god, high god, supreme god. Awakeners passively generate variable amounts of faith points each day. Faith points can be used to produce resources and sustain daily consumption within one's divine kingdom, and also serve as universal currency across the Federation. The amount of faith points each retainer generates scales with their individual strength. Retainer levels: Divine Kingdom area. Levels 1 to 3, Primary, 4 to 6, Intermediate, 7 to 9, Advanced, 10 to 12, Heroic, 13 to 15, Epic, 16, Legendary, 17 to 19, Demigod, 20 and above, Divine Being. A demigod's divine kingdom normally covers 10 times the area of an awakening realm awakener's territory. A divine being's divine kingdom spans 100 times the area of a demigod's domain, and so on. He reads intently, absorbing knowledge like a sponge soaking up water. Presently the bus arrives. He closes the book, mentally marking down the concept of faith points. Faith equals currency. Currency equals strength. Strength brings more resources. Faith forms the foundation of it all. Lin Shi boards bus route 17 heading for the city outskirts. Few passengers are aboard. He takes a window side seat. Scenery rushes past outside as his thoughts drift toward his SSS grade talent. 20 minutes later, the bus arrives at the suburban flower and pet market. Bird chirps, insect noises, and vendor shouts fill the air, mixed with the scent of feed and damp soil. Lin Shi heads straight for feed stalls and the cheap reptile section at the back to stock up in bulk. 20 yuan large box of mealworms holding thousands of wriggling golden larvae. 15 yuan box of crickets. 30 yuan large crate of dubia roaches. 35 yuan horn frog tadpole. 50 yuan cull leopard gecko. The vendor says its appearance is subpar, and Lin Shi states that is exactly what he wants. Vendor, huh? Finally, at one stall clearing out tanks, he buys half a bucket of river snails and freshwater mussels for 5 yuan. 140 yuan total buys a mountain of living creatures, filling 2 plastic bags and 1 plastic crate. He finds a park bench nearby and sets his purchases down. He focuses his will. All living creatures vanish from where they sit. His consciousness synchronizes and sinks into his divine kingdom. Mealworms, crickets, and roaches rain down onto the barren plain. Horned frogs clumsily crawl a few steps. The gecko flicks its tail. Snails and mussels tumble into a low, muddy hollow. The 200 rift tier insects catch the scent and stir. They surge forward from every direction, tearing with mouthparts and injecting digestive enzymes. A cricket's jumping legs are severed the instant it lands. The hard carapace of a roach is gnawed through within moments. The horned frog struggles briefly before vanishing beneath the gray, white insect tide. Dark, gold text keeps flickering. New gene detected. Leaping muscle fibers. Parsing in progress. New gene detected. Extreme, environment tolerance. Parsing in progress. New gene detected. Amphibian cutaneous respiration. Parsing in progress. New gene detected. Reptile scale regeneration. Parsing in progress. New gene detected. Mollusk layered shell structure. Parsing in progress. New gene detected. Bivalve pearl, layer biomineralization. Parsing in progress. As they devour, the insects begin to divide. One individual's abdomen swells to its limit, then splits down the middle. 2 newly born rift tier insects crawl out. Smaller than their parent, they move noticeably faster. 2 become 4. 4 become 8. Lin Shi observes without intervening. He wishes to observe what natural evolution the swarm will produce without active guidance. The swarm's number climbs steadily. 200, 300, 400, 500. He sits on the bench for roughly 1 hour, while nearly half a month passes within the divine kingdom. When the swarm hits 500 individuals, the first mutated specimen emerges. Larger than ordinary rift tier insects, its forelimbs are greatly thickened, edged with serrated chitin protrusions. Its dorsal carapace shifts from off-white to dark gray. It stops transporting food and instead patrols the swarm's perimeter, chopping apart prey too large to carry away in one bite. This is the early prototype of a blade insect. A second, then a third appear. Roughly 30% of the swarm shifts toward this variant. Next come individuals with greatly expanded abdomens and raised tail muscles. They arch their bodies and spray jets of pale yellow fluid that hiss and burn upon hitting the ground. They make up less than 10% of the swarm, early prototypes of acid spray insects. The remaining 60% shrink in size, yet develop sharper mouthparts and enlarged abdomens. They become the main labor force, dragging all chopped up food to fixed piles to feed larvae and dividing individuals. These are early prototypes of worker insects. Lin Shi pulls his awareness away from the swarm and notices something else. A burning emotion wells up from the deepest collective will of the insects. It is neither language nor rational thought, pure, unreserved trust and devotion. Every insect, as it devours, divides, patrols and carries food, sends this feeling toward him. They are born for him, feed for him, fight for him, die for him. Federal Basic Courses detail follower tiers. Nominal followers, drawn by benefit, may betray at any time for personal gain, produce almost no faith points. True followers, sincerely devoted, yet may waver when facing mortal danger, generate moderate faith points. Fanatical followers, soul, bound, never betray, never fear, never question, yield the highest faith point output. Every single insect in his swarm is a fanatical follower. 0.001 faith point per individual. 10,000 yield 10 points. 1 million yield 1,000 points. Zhouhao's orcs possess independent minds. They know fear and defiance, and can at most become true followers. Suqing Yuan's Ice Spirit clan have independent intelligence. Some become true followers, while others may even remain nominal followers. From the moment his insects crawl out of their eggs, Lin Shi's name is etched into their souls. This is not merely an advantage. It is overwhelming supremacy. Lin Shi withdraws from his divine kingdom and tosses the empty plastic crate into a waste bin. He walks back toward the bus stop and checks his device. It is 15:40, time to head home. On the ride back, he leans against the window, mentally running calculations. The genes acquired from the pet market creatures are only the beginning. He needs far more species to expand his gene library. He watches the streetscape stream past outside. Presently, the bus reaches his residential compound. He steps off. In the stairwell, he runs into Aunt Zhang, a neighbor. She sizes him up. Xiaoxi, today was your awakening ceremony, wasn't it? What talent did you get? D grade, reproduction lineage. Lin Shi smiles faintly. Oh, D grade is fine. Take things slow. Better than no talent at all. Her remark delivered. She walks away without further comment. Lin Shi pays it no mind. He is long, used to such attitudes among neighbors. He climbs the stairs. Opening the door and changing shoes, he does not immediately re-enter his divine kingdom. He sits down on the sofa and picks up his phone. He scrolls through contacts and selects Mom, placing a video call. The phone rings for a long time. Just as Lin Shi thinks no one will answer, the screen lights up. It is his mother. She wears gray, blue work overalls, her hair cut short. Wind and sun have weathered her features. Metal dorm, room walls form the background. Xiaoxi. Her voice brightens instantly. Today's awakening day. How did it go? It went all right. I got D grade talent, though my retainers are F grade. Silence falls briefly on the other end of the line. Then his mother keeps her smile and tone unchanged. D grade is nothing to be ashamed of. F grade retainers aren't humiliating either. It's better than having nothing at all. Don't listen to what others might say, all right? I know several D grade awakeners where I work. Good management lets them earn a solid living. Don't worry. I won't get discouraged. Teachers say ratings are just reference metrics, not everything. Have you eaten? Don't keep living on instant noodles. I ate, honestly. Got something from a restaurant downstairs. Suddenly, a second face crowds into the frame, his father. He looks thinner than last time they met, skin darkened by labor, yet his eyes shine bright. So what if it's D grade? F grade doesn't mean anything. He speaks in a loud voice. Your old man has zero talent and still makes a living. Tend to those bugs of yours. Honey, keep your voice down. His mother shoves his shoulder playfully. I'm just trying to encourage the boy. Lin Shi laughs, listening to them bicker over the call. Dad. He cuts in. How are things where you are? Is it safe? Totally safe. His father waves a hand. The seventh rift has stayed quiet these past 6 months. Hardly any demon beasts show up. Work progresses fast. I reckon in another 2 years when my contract ends I'll be home. And then, don't make empty boasts. His mother rolls her eyes, turning back toward the camera. Do you have enough spending money? Tell me if you need more, and I'll transfer some over. I'm fine. I still have leftover New Year holiday money. All right. Take good care of yourself. Call us if anything comes up. Okay. They chat a little longer before hanging up. Lin Shi sits quietly on the sofa for a while. The seventh rift has remained stable for half a year, with few monster sightings. Yet he remembers lessons covering rift cycle patterns. The longer a period of peace lasts, the more violent the subsequent outbreak. 6 months of calm means immense pressure has built up on the other side of the rift. Something major is likely brewing. Worrying changes nothing. Growing stronger is the only way he can ever help his parents. He sets his phone down to charge, lies back on his bed, closes his eyes, and sinks his consciousness once more into his divine kingdom. The plain around the prime evolution hive looks completely transformed. All the animals purchased from the market have been fully consumed. The swarm has grown from 900 individuals to nearly 2,000. The first round of natural differentiation is complete. 60% are worker insects, transporting materials, digging tunnels, and feeding larvae. 30% are blade insects patrolling the outer perimeter. The remaining 10% are acid spray insects practicing their discharges. He focuses his will upon the 30% blade insect contingent and issues a directive: strengthen forelimbs, optimize carapace structure. An invisible ripple spreads outward from the center of the hive. Every blade insect freezes for a moment, then files in orderly lines into the incubation chambers. Before long, the first batch of evolved blade insects emerges. Linshi observes one specimen closely. Its forelimbs thicken and sharpen. Stacked layers of chitin form razor-sharp, cutting edges. Its dorsal carapace darkens to charcoal gray and grows thicker, developing layered patterns similar to gecko scales across its surface. Its body size also increases, growing to 1.5 times its original dimensions. Linshi shifts his awareness over to the acid spray insects. This time he orders increased acid potency, expanded liquid storage abdominal cavities, and optimized tail spraying anatomy. One newly evolved specimen steps forward to test its abilities. The acid spray insect arches its body. A jet of green acid shoots forth. It strikes a patch of moss 15 meters away. The moss blackens and withers instantly, and the ground corrodes into a small crater. The older pale yellow acid only traveled a few meters and caused mild burns. Both power and effective range have improved drastically. The 10 times time acceleration effect keeps running. 1 real-world hour equals 5 months inside the divine kingdom. Linshi monitors every mutation and adjusts evolutionary directions in due time. The swarm expands from 1,500 to 2,100 individuals. Swarm population, 2,137 unit composition. Worker insects 62%, /blade insects 28%, /acid spray insects 10% daily faith point income, 21.4 faith points. Blade insect melee specialization remains incomplete at 40% progress. Their cutting limbs are sharp enough, yet carapace defense and muscle explosive force can still improve. Acid spray insects are combat ready. Their 15-meter range and potent corrosive fluid perform well in low-intensity combat scenarios. Linshi observes for a while longer before withdrawing from his divine kingdom. He opens his eyes. Dusk has fallen outside. He checks his device, 1830. More than 1 real-world hour has passed. He sits upright. His stomach growls. He realizes he barely ate lunch. He quickly prepares a bowl of instant noodles. While eating, he opens the Federal Faith Point trading platform on his device. He searches for basic mineral materials, 100 gene of limestone or for 80 faith points, 10 gene of iron sand for 20 faith points. Exactly 100 faith points total. He places the order without hesitation. 100 gene limestone or 10 gene iron sand, delivered directly to his divine kingdom coordinates. His 100 faith point balance drops to 0. After finishing his meal, he steps out onto the balcony for fresh air. The March night in Qingchuan City carries a chill, and distant city lights twinkle across the horizon. He lies back down on his bed, stares at the ceiling for a short while, then closes his eyes. Within his divine kingdom, the insect swarm keeps operating nonstop. With tenfold time acceleration, 1 night in reality equals more than 3 years of time within the divine kingdom. When he wakes tomorrow, the swarm will have grown substantially again. He savors this feeling. Morning arrives. Linshi is roused by signals originating from the prime evolution hive. He opens his eyes. Dawn has barely broken outside. Linshi closes his eyes and sinks his consciousness back into his divine kingdom. He opens his status panel. He notices the swarm population has jumped from 2,137 to 5,200 individuals. Overnight, the swarm has more than doubled. That is not the most important detail, however. He extends his perception deep into the collective will of the swarm, tracing its inner pulse back to its source. He perceives every single insect. Workers hauling supplies, blade insects standing in patrol formation, acid spray insects holding silent vigil. Even the subtle wriggling of unformed larvae inside incubation chambers, all continuously channel something toward him. It is neither matter nor raw energy. Something far purer. Federal basic courses devote an entire lesson to this concept. Faith. Every retainer generates faith toward their awakener, and faith condenses into faith points, the universal currency of the Federation. Output efficiency is not fixed. It hinges on one core variable, the depth of faith each retainer holds for their awakener. Textbooks classify faith depth into 3 tiers. False believers, outwardly compliant yet inwardly faithless, or driven purely by profit. They may turn on you at any moment. Their faith output is close to zero, barely scraping 0.0001 per day at best. Most low-intelligence servitor races and people subjugated by force fall into this tier. Believers, sincere converts who trust the awakener and obey orders without question. Output is stable. The majority of an awakener's servitors remain at this level. Zhou Hao's orcs and Su Qingyuan's I-Spirit clan are largely in this category. A small handful of close individuals rank slightly higher, but not by much. Fanatical believers, soul-bound. Faith is instinct. They will never betray, never flinch, never question. No preaching is needed, no scriptures required. Most critically, as the textbook states, fanatical believers' servitors fight to the death. In desperate situations, their combat power can surge up to 3-fold. The textbook concludes with a note. Fanatical believers are extremely rare. They usually require years of nurturing, abundant favor, or a servitor race innately sharing a soul origin with the awakener. Lin Shi stared at the 5,200 insects within his divine realm. He began random inspections. His perception delved into individuals of different unit types: worker-devourer insects, blade insects, acid sprayer insects. Every single one was a fanatical believer. 5,200 fanatical believers in total. Lin Shi opened his eyes. Lying in bed, he gazed up at the ceiling. He understood exactly what this meant. And this was only the beginning. Today marked the first official day of Divine Realm Awakening classes. The graystone, ore, and iron ore sand he had purchased the previous day had arrived in the early hours, piled east of the insect nest. Lin Shi sensed a small swarm of worker-devourer insects swarming over the stockpile. Their mouthparts gnawed at the gray stone as digestive fluid dripped onto it, hissing and sizzling. As they gnawed through ore, their mouthparts grew noticeably thicker. Several developed drill-like bony protrusions on their heads. They were evolving toward ore-eater insects. No rush. Let them take their time. He got ready and headed out at 7:30, arriving in the classroom at 7:50. Most students were already present. Zhou Hao slouched in the back row, shouting loudly with a group of followers. Spotting Lin Shi walk in, he deliberately raised his voice. "Well, look who's here, the Bug King. How did you sleep with your bugs last night?" His companions laughed in unison. Lin Shi ignored him, walking straight to his seat and sitting down. Zhao Lei twisted around from the front row. "Where were you last night? You never replied to my messages." "I slept at home." "How are your insects doing?" "Just raising them." Zhao Lei rolled his eyes and was about to press further when footsteps echoed from the podium. Chen Wanqing walked in holding her textbooks. Dressed in a gray windbreaker, her hair pulled neatly back. She set the textbook down on the podium with a sharp thud. The hum of conversation in the classroom died instantly, as if strangled. She scanned the room. Silence fell across the classroom. "You all know the results from yesterday's awakening ceremony." Chen Wanqing opened, flipping her textbook in a tone as flat as reading a menu. "From today onward, you are official awakener candidates. I don't care what your rating is. Over the next 4 weeks, we hold Divine Realm Management tutorials 3 times a week. Monday, Wednesday, Friday, last period in the afternoon. No unexcused absences." She paused and lifted her gaze above the textbook. "A school monthly assessment will take place on March 27th. A murmur rippled through the room. "The assessment evaluates prosperity rating. Intelligent systems will connect directly to your divine realms to pull objective data." She held up 4 fingers. 4 metrics in total: total biomass, resource output, servitor power, and servitor satisfaction. Zhou Hao raised his hand from the back row. "Teacher Chen, are there rewards for high rankings?" "Yes." Chen Wanqing glanced at him. "Faith point rewards for the top 3. 100,000 for first place, 50,000 for second, 20,000 for third. The first place winner also receives an additional Grade D construction card. Furthermore, anyone ranked within the top 20 may apply for a federal interest-free student loan with a maximum limit of 2 million. The classroom erupted in noise. 2 million interest-free loan money was an astronomical sum for senior high school students. Zhou Hao's eyes lit up. His father had given him 500,000. Combined with the 2 million loan, that totaled 2.5 million. With that much starting capital, he could build a formidable orc legion. "Zhou Hao." Chen Wanqing's calm voice cut through the commotion, singling out the loudest student. "Present. Your last practice management plan placed you 7th worst in the class." Her tone remained completely neutral. "Don't fixate on rewards. Hand in your unfinished assignment first. Laughter spread through the room. Zhou Hao's face flushed bright red, and he sank back into his seat without another word. One more announcement. Chen Wanqing's tone shifted marginally. The Federal Education Department inspection team will visit schools across the city this week. This is a routine citywide inspection, not targeting any individual. Attend classes as normal. If anyone requests private interviews, cooperate and stay calm. Her gaze swept across every corner of the classroom as she spoke. The bell rang for dismissal. No sooner had Chen Wanqing left than the classroom descended into noisy chatter. 2 million. If I got that, I could mass-produce mid-tier servitors right away. Dream on. Do you really think a grade D awakener can crack the top 20? Su Qingyuan is a shoo-in. Her grade A rating guarantees first place. Not so sure. Zhou Hao's family dumped 500,000 into his setup. 500,000 is nothing compared to what Su Qingyuan's family has. Zhou Hao stood up from the back row and called toward Lin Shi. Some bug-raising loser will probably score single digits on the prosperity rating assessment. Your total biomass might not even feed my orcs for one meal. His followers doubled over laughing. Lin Shi lowered his head to flip through his textbook, acting as though he had heard nothing. He ran calculations in his mind. 25 days until the monthly assessment. 2,500 years inside the divine realm. 250 years. How large could the insect swarm grow in that span? Just wait and see. Lin Shi paid close attention during morning classes. He took notes and marked key passages for mathematics, language, federal history, and other general subjects as usual. Yet half his attention remained anchored to the mental thread connecting him to his divine realm. He could faintly sense the swarm's activities. Worker-devourer insects gnawed, or blade insects patrolled. Acid sprayer insects practiced discharging their acid. Everything operated according to schedule. This experience of multitasking felt strange, like running a background process in his mind. At lunch break, Zhao Lei dragged him to the cafeteria. Once they had their food and sat down, Zhao Lei lowered his voice. Last night, I built pens for cattle and sheep inside my divine realm. The wool-bearing cattle are starting to produce milk, but reproduction is far too slow. I only have 60-odd head. Based on my calculations, natural breeding will take 2 months before the first batch can be harvested. Lin Shi took a mouthful of rice. What about you? Still just raising them. Can you stop giving me one-sentence replies? Zhao Lei sighed in frustration. Lin Shi said nothing and kept eating. He was not refusing to share information. The timing was wrong. The swarm only numbered 5,000. Or eater insects had just begun to emerge, and no profitable production cycle had been established. Revealing too much to Zhao Lei at this stage served no purpose. Negotiations for cooperation would only make sense once he sold his first batch of chitin and refined, and earned real faith points. The final afternoon period was the Divine Realm Management tutorial. Chen Wanqing stood at the podium, with the Federal Standard Prosperity Rating Calculation model projected behind her. Lin Shi closed his textbook and sat upright. The monthly assessment weighs 4 metrics for a total score of 100 points. Chen Wanqing picked up her chalk and wrote on the projection screen. Pay close attention. Don't complain you did not understand the grading rules once results come out. For lines appeared on the projection: total biomass, 25 points, resource output, 25 points, servitor power, 25 points, servitor satisfaction, 25 points. Lin Shi stared at the values, thoughts racing. Total biomass refers to the combined mass of all living beings within your divine realm. Note that mass matters more than sheer count. One dragon scores higher than 10,000 ants. Conversely, sufficient numbers can still earn high marks. 25 points. All 4 metrics carry equal weight. This is a hard objective stat with no loopholes. Resource output, 25 points. This includes, food supplies, medicinal ingredients, special materials, anything that can be listed for sale on federal trading platforms. Sustained ongoing production earns higher scores than one-off hauls. In other words, you need stable supply chains, not random opportunistic gathering. Servitor power, 25 points. This is determined by individual servitor rank and combat capability, measured against federal standard servitor tiers. Tier 1-3, low tier, Tier 4-6, mid-tier, Tier 7-9, high tier, Tier 10 and above, hero tier. Beyond that lie epic, legendary, demigod and god tier. Higher-ranked servitors yield better scores. Spamming large quantities of low-tier units will not boost this score. Lin Shi mentally cross-referenced his own forces. Blade insects, acid sprayer insects, and worker-devourer insects were all Tier 1 low tier. No matter how many he bred, this category would never grant him high marks. The final metric is servitor satisfaction, worth 25 points. It measures how your servitors view you, their awakener, how much they trust you, how willing they are to execute orders. Rule through fear, and your score will be low. Rule over genuine believers, and your score rises. For fanatical believer servitors, Chun Wanqing paused briefly. This metric automatically maxes out. Fanatical believers are extraordinarily rare. Among our 400-plus students this year, I expect we will see none at all. The monthly assessment has 2 segments: prosperity rating testing in the morning, followed by live combat matches in the afternoon, Chun Wanqing added. The total score is out of 100 for whole school rankings. Top 20 candidates qualify for the federal interest-free loan, and the top 3 receive faith point rewards. She set down her chalk. I do not care about your innate awakener rating. The prosperity rating assessment tests management skill. A grade D awakener can achieve excellent results with good management, just as a grade B awakener can perform terribly through poor planning. The tutorial ended, and school finished for the day. Zhou Hao stretched as he stood and spoke to his followers. Come on. Tonight, I will upgrade my orc's weaponry inside my divine realm. I will show certain someone what real first-place potential looks like. He glanced pointedly toward Lin Shi, who was already packing his backpack, used to such taunts. Outside the school gate, Lin Shi declined Zhao Lei's invitation to eat noodles and headed straight home. On his walk, he re-evaluated the 4 weighted metrics in his mind. Total biomass, 25 points. The insect swarm's numbers equate to total biomass. 500,000 insects would be far better than 50,000, or even 50,000. Resource output, 25 points. Once, or eater insects mature, steady, or production begins. Later they will generate chitin, digestive enzymes, and corrosive acid, all high demand tradable goods. Servitor power, 25 points. Individual insects remain tier 1 low tier. He cannot expect many points here. Servitor satisfaction, 25 points. Every single insect is a fanatical believer. Full marks guaranteed. 75 points were effectively locked in. The remaining 25 points depended on servitor power. He would take whatever marks his low-tier swarm could earn. Lin Shi unlocked his front door, changed shoes, and tossed his backpack onto the sofa. He lay down on his bed and sank his consciousness into the divine realm. The piles of gray stone, ore, and iron, or sand sat east of the insect nest. Roughly 18 real world hours had passed, equating to more than 7 years inside the divine realm. Nearly 1/3 of the ore stockpiles had been consumed. Or, eater insects were no longer a lone specimen. Lin Shi scanned the area and counted 7 of them. Gene analysis for the ore eater insect stood at 94%, nearly complete. These 7 were the first naturally differentiated generation. More would emerge over time. Total insect numbers had grown from 5,200 to 7,800. Blade insect close combat specialization reached 72%. Acid sprayer insects maintained a consistent 20-meter attack range. Worker devourer insects had excavated the 5th subterranean layer of the nest. 1/3 of the gray stone stockpile had been devoured, yielding roughly 12 kilograms of refined gray stone ore and 3 kilograms of refined iron ore. While not high-grade, basic or always sold reliably on trading platforms. Lin Shi mentally transported the 12 kilograms of gray stone and 3 kilograms of iron ore to his trading platform storage. He checked market rates. Gray stone ore traded for approximately 0.5 faith points per kilogram. Iron ore for 1.5 faith points per kilogram. 12 kilograms of gray stone totaled 6 faith points. 3 kilograms of iron ore added another 4.5, for a combined 10.5 faith points. He listed the goods for sale. Less than 3 minutes later, a system notification popped up. Item sold. The buyer had not even negotiated. Basic ore was always in demand. 10 and a half faith points were credited to his account. Combined with his previous balance of 8.4 faith points, he now held 18.9 faith points total. This marked his very first profit earned from his divine realm. Not passive faith generation, but wealth created through the labor of his insects. Lin Shi withdrew his awareness from the divine realm. Sitting on the edge of his bed, he thought things over. Right now he possessed 18.9 faith points and 3060 yuan in cash. He walked to the kitchen, prepared instant noodles, and ate by the window. Street lamp light glowed downstairs. The March night carried a crisp chill. Chun Wanqing's words echoed in his mind. A grade D awakener can achieve excellent results with good management. He thought about Zhou Hao's 500,000 faith points, Su Qingyuan's grade BI Spirit Clan, and the inspection team arriving in town this week. 7,800 insects. 7. Or eater insects. Daily profit close to 10 faith points. Everything unfolded according to his plans. She placed his bowl into the sink, locked the door, and returned to bed. Light filtered through sheer curtains from street lamps outside, casting dim streaks across the floor. He closed his eyes and dived once more into the divine realm. Winds swept across the plains, not natural wind, but airflow stirred by thousands of insects moving in unison. Earth mixed with the sharp, sweet tang of acid washed over his perception, like pressing one's face against freshly turned damp soil. He issued orders to the eater insects, spread outward. Mark all veins, recording subterranean depth and mineral composition as they conducted resource surveys of the surrounding land. All 31 eater insects burrowed underground. Drill-shaped mouthparts led the way, digestive fluid melting rock ahead. 7 circular holes dotted the ground as loose soil trickled inward. He accelerated time. 2 hours in reality equated to 10 months within the divine realm. 31 eater insects multiplied out from the original 7 burrows. Their survey radius stretched 50 kilometers. Pheromone markers lit up in Shi's perception like scattered lights in darkness. 15 kilometers due south, 30 meters underground. A banded hematite vein 200 meters wide, 60% iron content. Excavated here required almost no further refinement. 30 kilometers southeast, 50 meters underground, copper deposits. The deposit was modest in scale, yet the ore glowed dull red under the constant divine realm light and fetched 3 times iron's market price. 20 kilometers east, exposed gray, stone bedrock at the surface. Eater insects bored through it effortlessly, and no end to the rock formation was visible in any direction. Shi slowed his breathing. When he had spent 100 faith points purchasing those initial piles, he had expected ongoing material expenses. Now the eater insect's 7 burrows revealed, he sat atop massive natural mineral reserves. He mentally prioritized his mining targets. The nearby, high-yield hematite vein came first. Copper, with its high market value, would be exploited once more eater insects existed. Abundant gray stone would continuously feed worker-devourer insects to foster their growth. Blackrock deposits would wait until his insects possessed sufficient jaw strength. The final marker lit up most slowly. 40 kilometers north, 70 meters underground. When eater insects reached this stratum, sparks flew as their drill mouthparts struck bedrock. One drill tip snapped off. Digestive fluid splashed across the rock, yet failed to corrode it at all. Acid slid off its surface, leaving faint burn marks on the surrounding ground. After days of collective effort, the 31 eater insects only chipped loose a fist-sized fragment. The material was black, dense, and heavier than iron, with a smooth glazed outer surface. It contained an unknown metallic element absent from both his textbooks and platform commodity catalogs. Blade insect sickles merely scratched faint white lines across its surface. Shi assigned it a working name, Blackrock. It was useless for his present needs, yet he logged its exact location. He opened his eyes and checked the time, 9:40. The next day, March 5th, Shi arrived in the classroom 10 minutes before morning self-study began. Zhao Lei sat at his desk munching a chive, an egg bun, grease soaking through the paper wrapper as his cheeks bulged. "You're early today. Come over to my place after school." Shi pulled out his chair and sat down. "I want to discuss a cooperation deal." Zhao Lei paused mid-chew. "What kind of cooperation? How much waste does your family's ranch produce every day?" "Bones, offal, hide scraps, manure." Zhao Lei swallowed his food and wiped greasy hands on his trousers. "Slaughter operations haven't started yet. Cattle and sheep haven't reached market weight. Right now we only have manure. My dad pays workers to haul it away for fertilizer, and it's barely worth the labor. Why are you asking about this? Don't discard it in future. Give it all to me. I will process it for you." "Give you manure? My insects feed on that." Shi glanced around the classroom and lowered his voice. Once consumed, they produce sellable chitin and digestive enzymes, all tradable on federal platforms. Other students chatted nearby, paying them no attention. "Your so-called F-ranked hearer insects can generate come and see for yourself after school." Zhao Lei had known Shi for 6 years. Though quiet, Shi never lied. If he claimed it worked, it worked. "Fine. I will ride my electric scooter to take you there." "All right." During afternoon classes, Shi split his focus between lessons and his divine realm mental link. Eater insects had carved a sizable hollow into the hematite vein, fine dust accumulating across its floor. Chun Wanxin called on him to recite textbook knowledge. He answered correctly and sat back down. He caught Chun Wanxing observing him for a brief second before she resumed writing on the blackboard. School ended. They headed toward Zhao Lei's family farm. The smell of livestock drifted on the wind from 3 blocks away. A mix of hay, animal manure, and disinfectant carried along by the scooter. Zhao Dihao stood hosing down concrete ground. Thin and tanned, he wore a rubber apron and rubber boots dripping with brown wastewater. He shut off the hose, wiped his hands on his apron, and studied Lin Shi. You must be Lin Shi. Yes. Come inside. The small room had been converted from a storage shed, furnished with folding tables and plastic stools. Feed sacks piled in the corners filled the air with the stale scent of grain husks. Zhao Dihao poured tea into an enamel mug stained dark brown by years of tea residue. Lin Shi placed his terminal on the table and activated Divine Realm Screen, sharing. The display opened showing the main insect nest, 5 subterranean levels. Worker-devourer insects transported white nutrient paste through tunnels, while blade insects patrolled along walls, their sickles glistening cold under artificial light. The view shifted to the southern nest, or eater insects crawled across red-hued hematite walls, drills burrowing into rock as fine iron dust showered down like crimson snow. Zhao Dihao froze mid-sip of tea. These are supposed to be terror insects. They evolved. Lin Shi tapped the screen and pulled up the record of his earlier 10.5 faith point transaction. They can chew rock and produce refined ore. Zhao Lei stared open, mouthed beside them. Zhao Dihao ignored the sales receipt. He watched the close-up footage of eater insect drills biting ore for a long moment. He set down his teacup and looked straight at Lin Shi. What exactly do you want from us? Livestock byproducts. Bones, offal, hide scraps, manure. Right now you throw them away or sell them cheap as fertilizer. Hand them over to me. From all ore and chitin I produce, I will give you 30% of the market rate profit. So you take 70, I take 30? The waste costs you nothing. You earn pure profit on that 30%. A small brown fly buzzed in circles around the feed sacks in the corner. 2 seconds passed before Zhao Dihao laughed. Wrinkles crinkled around his eyes, revealing yellowed teeth stained from smoking. You are quite the shrewd negotiator. Since you are Lei Lei's friend, we have a deal. He held out his rough, palmed hand marked by an old scar across the base of his thumb. They shook hands. Zhao Lei let out a long breath and slapped Lin Shi hard across the back. Zhao Dihao retightened his apron and tapped one finger against the tabletop twice. Old Wang, who raises chickens in the eastern village next door, produces even more waste. Dead chickens plus chicken manure. Right now he buries dead birds and sells manure as fertilizer. I will negotiate for you. His supply will count toward my 30% share. The principles of breeding are straightforward, Zhao Dihao added. You are what you eat. The more feed you receive, the bigger your 30% cut grows. Lin Shi shot him a glance. This man was shrewder than he'd expected. Expanding the supply chain voluntarily was no act of kindness. He understood full well that the more the swarm consumed, the more it produced, and his 30% cut would grow fatter as a result. The math was simple. 30% sounded steep, yet the waste materials were worthless to begin with. Once consumed by the swarm, the ore chitin they excreted turned into newly minted profit. Zhao Dihao walked away with 30% for nothing, while Lin Shi gained raw materials. Both sides won. An ally who could crunch numbers was far more reliable than one bound by loyalty alone. Very well, Uncle Zhao. Handle it as you see fit. Dusk had fallen by the time he walked out of the breeding farm. Evening wind poured down the collar of his school uniform, and Lin Shi shrank his neck against the chill. Zhao Lei pushed the beat-up electric scooter whose brakes screamed with every squeeze, rambling excitedly about eating insects. Lin Shi barely responded. His mind lingered on Zhao Dihao's words about breeding principles. 20 years of experience as an E-grade breeder might teach him more than any textbook. The scooter's taillight blurred into a red dot in the twilight as it wobbled back toward town. Back home, he closed his eyes and entered his divine realm. He sent a command surging into the swarm's collective will, like a stone striking water. Ripples spread outward. The hive mind received the order and set it into motion. 12 eating insects turned south. 500 worker-devourer insects formed a column. 50 blade insects fanned out on both sides as guards, their scythe, like forelimbs half-raised. A yellow-gray cloud of dust rose from the ground, streaking straight toward the southern hematite vein to establish a secondary hive on site. Lin Shi's consciousness hung suspended in mid-air, watching the column cross the plains. The 500 worker, Devourers advanced slowly yet unswervingly, not one straying from the path. The swarm needed no human supervision for discipline. They instinctively knew how to march in formation. Within a single day, his breeding orders had swollen the swarm to nearly 10,000 individuals. Starting from merely 200 rending insects, they had devoured crickets and horned frogs from the pet market to reach their current scale. Yet a heavy problem weighed on his thoughts. He tallied the swarm's appetite. Nearly 10,000 insects consumed roughly one-third of their total body weight in biomass each day. Pet market stock had long run dry, and the bone and flesh packs from the trading platform were only a preliminary test. The insects were still too small to threaten ordinary-sized humans. Blade insects stood at 88% specialization, more than capable of slicing through cricket elytra. On a real battlefield, however, Zhou orc servant could crush hordes of them beneath a single foot. Numbers were the foundation of the Zerg swarm, yet their bodies remained fragile. He needed genes from larger creatures, muscle density, bone strength, bodily growth hormones, traits absent in insects and small reptiles. That night, he opened the trading platform. He scrolled through live creature listings for half an hour before closing each entry one by one. Live creatures were prohibitively expensive. Even juvenile medium-sized beasts cost dozens of faith points, and there was no guarantee they would yield the genes the swarm required. He adjusted his search filter to slaughter house-buy products. Order placed: 5 packs of mixed cattle and pig bone, and blood scraps from Qingchuan Slaughterhouse for 10 faith points. Crocodile spinal bone and hide scraps from the Northern City Special Breeding Farm for 3 faith points, an item no other buyer wanted, for ordinary insects could not gnaw through the tough crocodile hide. 1 full skeleton of retired farm, bred working dogs for 3 faith points. 16 faith points spent. Remaining balance, 2.9. White light flickered repeatedly at the Divine Realm coordinate. 5 woven sacks, 1 foam box, and 1 cardboard pile materialized beside the feeding grounds. The stench hit first, thick metallic iron tang mixed with disinfectant, drifting across every corner of the Divine Realm. The feeding grounds fell silent for a heartbeat, then erupted into chaos. Worker devourers halted their labors. Transport crews hesitated, then swarmed toward the feeding zone, moving nearly twice as fast as before. Blade insects struck first. Their sides sliced open woven sacks, and congealed pig blood chunks tumbled out, their dark, red surfaces glistening. Dark, gold text popped into view. Detected bovine muscle, fiber, and bone. Density genes, parsing in progress. Detected crocodilian scale, mineralization and jaw muscle, structure genes, parsing in progress. Detected canine muscular, endurance, and olfactory, receptor genes, parsing in progress. The swarm stirred into furious activity. Worker devourers tore open packages and dragged them deep into the hive. Blade insects ringed the food piles. Unable to bite clean through full cattle leg bones, they gnawed at meat and cartilage lodged within bone crevices. Acid spray insects vented corrosive fluid. Fine bubbles fizzed across bone surfaces, etching tiny holes. Worker devourers wriggled through those openings to suck out marrow. Gnawing, acid, hissing, and the scratch of insect limbs against woven sacks merged into a constant din across the feeding grounds. Lynchie focused his will. Blade insects were to prioritize consuming bovine muscle and crocodile scale genes for increased body size and shell mineralization. Worker devourers would break down bones, funneling all calcium and growth hormones toward larvae. Cattle would grant muscle mass, crocodiles hardened carapaces, canine stamina. 3 sets of genes, each absorbed separately with no genetic conflict. 10. Fold time acceleration. Half an hour in real world time equaled more than 2 months within the Divine Realm. He sat on his bedside for a while, then lay down, his consciousness anchored within the Divine Realm as he watched the swarm gnaw through the mountain of bones. The first blade insects that had consumed bovine flesh began to grow. Fine cracks split their outer shells. New, darker, denser chitin pushed outward, and each insect wriggled free of its old molted carapace. The newly emerged blade insect had grown drastically, swelling from thumb length to palm-sized. Its iron, black carapace bore ridged patterns reminiscent of crocodile hide. Its 6 limbs scraped against the ground as it marched toward an unfinished cattle leg bone. It swung its scythe limb. Bone shards flew. The bone snapped cleanly in 2. Older blade insects had required 3 strikes just to cut through cricket wing cases. This new generation cleaved through cattle leg bone with a single blow. Blade insect individual body size increased, 300%. Carapace mineralization, 40%. Melee specialization, 88%. New subspecies evolutionary tendency, large-scale blade insect. Upon full specialization, body length will exceed 30 centimeters, capable of piercing low-ranked servant defenses. 30 centimeters long. Orc servants would no longer dare to step on such creatures. What about 1,000 of them? 10,000? He would push them to 1 meter. Given sufficient genetic material, the swarm possessed no hard upper limit. By the third day, the first batch of large blade insects finished maturing. 2,000 individuals, each 30 centimeters long with iron black shells and barbed scythe forelimbs, crouched in disciplined ranks at the hive entrance. Simultaneously, construction finished on the southern secondary hive. 500 worker devourers excavated a 3-layer structure above the mineral vein. Storage chambers pressed directly against rock walls, or refined by or eating insects accumulated on site, eliminating the old 15-kilometer round-trip transport route. Newly hatched or eating insects split free from their incubation chambers and sank their jaws straight into mineral bedrock. Southern secondary hive operational. Resident population, 3,200. Or eating insects, 31 adults plus 17 incubating. Daily or output, 25 kg refined iron, 40 kg gray stone. Transport overhead eliminated. Production capacity doubled. Across the following 2 nights, molting spread through the entire swarm. Piles of pale discarded shells littered the feeding grounds. Worker devourers dragged the molts away, grinding them to powder and mixing the material into hive wall mortar. The hive itself expanded. Linchi's mind wandered during morning classes. As the math teacher drew parabolas across the blackboard, Linchi sketched and erased swarm distribution maps in the margins of his textbook. 20-odd days remained until the monthly exam. 200-plus years of accelerated time inside his divine realm would reshape his swarm completely. After school, Zhao Lei's squealing brake electric scooter waited faithfully by the school gate, its handlebars wrapped in faded red silk ribbon. My dad said we should pick up the first batch of supplies today. Linchi climbed onto the rear seat. Let's go. The scooter turned into the backyard of the Zhao family breeding farm. Zhao Dihao wore no apron, only an old jacket. Beside him sat 2 dusty woven sacks. Dark brown dampness seeped through the fabric, staining the concrete ground. 120 units of cattle manure, 80 of sheep manure. Also 2 sheep that died of illness yesterday. Zhao Dihao gestured toward the sacks. Processed, pathogen-free. Your insects can eat this. Linchi reached out and touched the sack. Through the fabric, he felt damp, loose material. A fermented livestock stench mixed with hay drifted toward him. He glanced around to confirm no one watched, then pressed his palm against the sack opening. A thought flickered through his mind. Both sacks vanished from his grasp. Inside the divine realm's feeding zone, worker devourers swarmed instantly. Their mouthparts acted like hundreds of tiny shovels, disassembling, transporting, sorting. Fermented plant fibers were dragged toward worker devourer nest chambers. Undigested grain particles were sifted out and stacked separately. Zhao Dihao stared at Linchi's now empty hands and raised an eyebrow. That certainly saves you trouble. He pulled a crumpled cigarette pack from his jacket pocket and clamped an unlit cigarette between his lips. I struck a deal with old Wang. Deliveries start tomorrow. He gets a lot of dead chickens every day, over 10+ chicken manure, huge volume. His share comes out of my 30% cut. You don't need to worry about payment. Thank you, Uncle Zhao. No need for thanks. Zhao Dihao lowered the cigarette. Off you go. He turned toward the house, then glanced back halfway. Your insects won't grow fast feeding only on manure and bones. If you want larger individuals, add more protein. Mix in cheap meat and bone meal. 10-fold better growth than manure alone. My slaughterhouse turns out dozens of kilos of waste meat scraps every month. I'll set those aside for you. Linchi remained silent, mentally tallying accounts. All supply chain channels ran through Zhao Dihao. He only needed to settle overall balances. Convenient, time-saving. The house door closed. Linchi stood where he was, replaying the words in his head. Meat meal, protein, mixed feed. Textbooks and tutoring courses never mentioned such practical knowledge. Zhao Dihao had offered it casually with an unlit cigarette in his mouth. A voice drifted out through the crack of the door. Lou from West Village raises livestock too. Mass fertilizer output. Want me to connect you? Linchi thought briefly. Let's get Zhao's supply line running smoothly first. Uncle Lou can wait. Very well. Came the reply from indoors. Time to go. Zhao Lei called from the scooter. What did my dad keep talking to you about? How to feed insects. Does feeding insects need special advice? It does, Linchi answered. Better than textbooks. The tail light blurred into a red dot amid twilight. Within the divine realm, blade insects molted, or eating insects gnawed rock. Worker devourers broke down the manure sacks. Under 10-fold time acceleration, everything grew. The next day, Linchi arrived outside the staff office. The door stood ajar. He knocked twice. "Come in." Chen Wanxing sat behind the desk, twirling a pen. A stack of Divine Realm Management Primer lay spread before her. She spotted Linchi and stilled her pen. "Teacher Chen, I'd like to apply for the D-grade resource subsidy." Chen Wanxing set down her pen and leaned back in her chair, studying him from head to toe. No one else occupied the office. Footsteps of running students echoed from the corridor outside and faded away. "Sit." Linchi sat across from her. The old chair creaked under his weight. "You ought to know the subsidy terms," Chen Wanqing said. D-grade awakeners may apply once within 1 month of awakening. Benefits include 1,000 faith points, 1 random D-grade building card, and a 50,000 faith point Federation interest subsidized loan limit. Linchi nodded. He did not rush to fill out the form. He mentally weighed each reward. Faith points bought or in feed for insects. The building card depended on luck. The loan limit served as a fallback. 1,000 faith points could purchase meat meal for 2 months, or double, or eating insect production. 1,000 faith points is not a vast sum, yet enough for your initial development. Chen Wanqing opened a drawer and slid a form across the desk. "Fill this out. The building card is drawn randomly. It comes down to luck." Linchi picked up his pen and filled in his personal information: name, awakening date, talent rating, divine realm area. Pen scratched steadily across paper. The short form took 3 minutes. His handwriting was quick yet firm. A telephone rang in the neighboring office and kept ringing unanswered. When he reached the divine realm area entry, his pen paused. He wrote, 1 million square kilometers. Chen Wanqing's gaze lingered on that number for 2 seconds. 1 million square kilometers. She repeated softly, then lifted her head with a faint smile. "Linchi, do you realize that the combined divine realm area of every other student in your class does not match this single figure?" "I know. F-grade talent paired with 1 million square kilometer divine realm exists nowhere else in federal archives." Chen Wanqing's tone stayed gentle. "No one understands what this truly signifies, but I have taught for 10 years. Area is granted by fate. Usage depends entirely on the individual. Vast territory gives you access to ceilings others will never reach. Talent ratings cannot be altered. Divine realm management, however, is fully within your control." She pushed the form back toward him, tapping her fingertip against the signature block. "On your awakening day, the whole room laughed at you. You never so much as changed your expression. An 18-year-old boy mocked before hundreds without flinching. That alone convinces me you will accomplish something meaningful. Your subsidy is approved. 1,000 faith points will arrive this afternoon. Collect your building card from Student Affairs after school. Leave the loan limit for now. Come find me if you ever need it." Linchi listened, but did not fully trust praise. Vast territory was fate's gift, yet he trusted hard number ledgers far more. He pressed his pen firmly and signed his name. "Thank you, Teacher Chen." He walked toward the doorway. Chen Wanqing called after him. "Linchi." He turned back. "Your parents are stationed at the 7th Rift, aren't they?" Her voice softened. "Conditions there have grown turbulent lately. Do not let your parents down. Keep pushing forward." Linchi's hand rested on the doorknob for a brief instant. "I understand. Thank you, teacher." He pulled the door open and stepped out. Bright sunlight flooded the corridor. March wind streamed through the windows. During the final after-school tutoring session, Chen Wanqing lectured on awakener lifespans. A Federation standard lifespan comparison chart projected onto the screen. Linchi sat in the 3rd row and read it clearly. Awakener, approximately 200-year lifespan. Demigod, approximately 1,000-year lifespan. Formal God, approximately 30,000-year lifespan. Overgod rank, unknown, no public records. Why can awakeners live 200 years? Chen Wanqing pointed at the projection. Divine realm feedback. A portion of faith generated by servants sustains the divine realm. Another portion flows back to the awakener, strengthening the flesh and slowing aging. The stronger your servants, the denser your faith, the greater this feedback, and the more robust your body becomes. She paused. That is why the Federation encourages everyone to manage their divine realm seriously. You are not merely raising servants. You are nurturing your own life. A hush fell over the classroom. Some students murmured, 30,000 years, imagine living that long. Another voice replied, first try surviving to 200. Laughter rippled through the room. Chen Wanqing ignored it. Linchi stared at the chart, thoughts racing. He had noticed something neither Chen Wanqing nor textbooks mentioned. Starting the previous night, He could physically sense his body changing. That morning, when he reached for the water glass on his nightstand, his fingers moved faster and steadier than usual. Climbing stairs 2 steps at a time left him neither winded nor fatigued. Later that day, Old Wang's first shipment arrived, sacks of dead chickens and chicken manure. While Zhao Lei huffed and strained lifting one sack, Lin Shi hoisted another single-handed. Zhao Lei stared in shock. He had written it off as imagination at the time. Now he understood. His appetite had grown sharper. His sleep had deepened. These were not merely mood-related changes. His body was being remade. The swarm fed feedback into him. Most awakeners commanded only hundreds or thousands of servants, yielding faint, negligible feedback. Lin Shi's nearly 10,000-strong swarm were all fanatical worshippers, producing faith dozens of times denser than ordinary peers. A self-reinforcing cycle formed. The swarm grew stronger, feeding power back to him. As he grew stronger, he could sustain an even larger swarm. A larger swarm in turn yielded greater feedback. He glanced down at his hands, long-fingered, while knuckled, outwardly unchanged from 3 days prior. Yet something beneath the skin was shifting. Chen Wanqing kept lecturing. Demigod marks the first major lifespan breakthrough. Demigods make up 5% of the federal population. True gods account for less than 0.1%. Lin Shi jotted notes in his textbook margin. Swarm, faith, feedback, body. Lifespan. Rank. He underlined lifespan twice. Once this cycle spun fully into motion, no one would keep pace with him. After school, Lin Shi collected his building card from Student Affairs. A middle-aged teacher with glasses verified his student record and drew a card from a drawer. Random D-grade building card. All luck dependent. The silver-gray card bore small printed text. Divine Realm Building, E-Random D-grade. Lin Shi pressed his thumb against its surface and channeled faith. Soft light glowed across the card. Draw successful. Divine Realm Building D-grade, incubation hive. Insect type servant incubation speed plus 30%. Incubation survival rate plus 15%. Valid exclusively for insect type servants. The teacher leaned over for a glance. Insect only? You are the sole student here raising insect servants. This draw practically fits you perfectly. Lin Shi tucked the card into his pocket, the corners of his mouth twitching upward. Good fortune indeed. An insect-specific building card. Probably no one else in all of Qingchuan City could make proper use of it. Returning home, he placed the incubation hive at the heart of his hive's incubation chamber. The building card dissolved into white light. A smooth hemispherical mound rose from the ground, glowing with gentle warmth. Its interior featured honeycomb-shaped compartments lined by translucent silk mesh. Worker devourers carried eggs neatly into each cell. Larvae wriggled within, hatching noticeably faster than those outside. He opened his terminal and checked faith point balances. The 1,000-point subsidy had arrived. Balance, 1,017.9. He stared at the number for a moment and opened the monster creature listing. The cheapest F-grade monster crystal fragments cost 1,200 faith points. Just short. Lin Shi closed the listing. He switched to mineral commodity market data. Greystone prices kept climbing. Iron ore remained stable. Once the southern secondary hive accumulated sufficient or stockpiles, 1,200 points would be well within reach. March 6th, the 5th day since awakening. Lin Shi took a half-day leave. Seated on an old living room sofa, he kept his phone lit on the coffee table, waiting for an incoming call. At 9 o'clock sharp, the phone rang. Student Lin Shi, confirmation requested for full activation of your 50,000 faith point loan limit. Interest-free grace period lasts until graduation. Repay before graduation to incur zero interest. If you do not pursue further studies, standard base rate repayment applies after 2 years. Do you confirm? I confirm. Keyboard tapping sounded over the line, followed by a system prompt. Loan credited, 50,000 faith points. The call ended. Before he set down his phone, another transfer notification popped up. Received, 50,000 faith points. Remarks, raise your insects well. Mom. Lin Shi stared at those 5 words for a long time and placed a video call. It connected after 2 rings. His mother sat on the edge of a mine site dormitory bed, work overall still on. Faint hum of mining machinery echoed in the background. Did you get it? Mom, you two saved for 3 whole years. Don't dawdle. Zhang Xiaolong cut him off. Surviving only on D-grade subsidies keeps you stuck at D-grade forever. If you want to climb higher, you have to invest resources. That money was originally set aside for your future marriage. Now it goes toward raising your insects. His father's face crowded into the frame from the side, voice booming. If you fail to make something of those insects, expect a beating when you come home for New Year. Understood. The monthly exam is approaching. Call us once it finishes. His mother added before ending the video. Linchi sat quietly for a while, then stood and opened the trading platform. He had never possessed such vast resources. 100,000 faith points in total. He spent every single point that very same day. 15 F-grade monster crystal cores fetched 18,000. 800 gene of F-grade monster essence meat brought in 24,000. 3 tubes of E-grade monster bone marrow fluid netted 15,000. The remaining funds went into mining materials, alien insect eggs, and live feed. White light flickered non-stop at the Divine Realm coordinate point for nearly 20 minutes. A mountain-like pile formed in the feeding zone, where the stench of blood, metallic fumes, and raw organic reek mingled. The insect swarm surged forward. The moment the 15 crystal cores landed, the hive will stirred restlessly, drawing the full attention of nearly 10,000 insects. He did not sleep that night. Seated cross-legged on his bed, he kept his consciousness anchored to the Divine Realm the entire time. With 10-fold time acceleration, one night equated to more than 3 years within the realm. For the entire week afterward, Lin Shi attended classes by day and devoted every spare moment to the Divine Realm at night. School occupied his days, and the Divine Realm claimed his nights, leaving only time for meals and brief rest. When Zhao Lei invited him to play games, Lin Shi said he was reviewing his lessons. When Zhou Hao showed off his orc followers in class, Lin Shi did not even lift his head. He laid down an ironclad rule for the swarm: prioritize consumption, sustain constant reproduction, and push the hatching nests to maximum output. The monster energy from the crystal cores was broken down by blade bugs into denser muscle fibers. Regenerative factors from the bone marrow fluid were transferred by worker bugs to the larvae. Special genes carried by alien insect eggs were devoured one by acid spray bugs. On the second day, the first batch of blade bugs that had consumed the crystal cores began molting. A crack split their outer carapaces. New shells glowed with a dull golden sheen as they slowly squeezed out from beneath the old coverings. The molted blade bugs rose to their feet, knee-high to Lin Shi, about the size of German shepherds. Resting on 6 limbs, their iron-black carapaces bore dark gold patterns, and their scythe-like appendages were half-raised, shaped like crescent moons. All through that night, sounds echoed across the feeding grounds. Sharp cracks of splitting carapaces, faint creaks as new shells hardened, wet squelches of larvae breaking out of their egg cases. On the third day, the acid spray bugs completed their transformation. Their abdomens swelled, their bodies grew over a meter long, and 4 sturdy abdominal limbs bore their weight. Their rear ejection tubes resembled small cannons. One bug arched its body and aimed its tail tube at a monster carcass. Boom! Dark green acid shot more than 20 meters. Foam bubbled across the carcass, and 2 minutes later only a calcified white shell remained. On the 4th day, worker bugs grew to 1 meter in length. Dark brown with semi-transparent abdomens and iron clamp-like mouthparts, they dragged or chunks 10 times their own size steadily into the mine tunnels. The main hive expanded from 5 to 15 layers, with the hatching nests anchored at its center. Worker bugs marched in lines to carry eggs inside, then marched out again bearing newly hatched larvae. On the 5th day, the hematite subhive expanded to 8 layers, its storage chambers pressed tight against mine walls. A 4-layer subhive rose above the copper deposit in the southeast, and collection outposts were built in the Greystone rock formations to the east. On the 6th day, exploration sentries were dug deep beneath the northern black rock stratum. Several ore-gnawing bugs kept gnawing at the unyielding black bedrock, their drill-like appendages glowing bright from constant friction. On the 7th night, the last batch of larvae crawled out of the hatching nests. The population counter jumped to 6 digits, 158,000. Starting from an initial force of 11,000, the swarm had multiplied 14-fold in 1 week. On Sunday morning, the doorbell rang. Zhao Dihao stood outside, wearing a worn jacket, a tattered ledger tucked under his arm, with his cargo tricycle parked behind him. He stepped inside without sitting down and glanced around the living room. Only Lin Shi was home, with unwashed bowls left on the table. He spread the ledger open across the tea table. Here's this week's accounts. Pages listed cow dung, sheep manure, 2 diseased sheep, slaughterhouse scraps, and other supplies delivered over more than a week of trial provisioning. All the supplies have been fed in. I converted the resulting output to credits using platform market rates, Lin Shi said. He activated his terminal and completed 2 online transfers. Zhao's 30% share, 2,400 faith points, and Lu's batch, 300 points. 2 arrival chimes rang almost simultaneously. Zhao Dihao stared at the numbers, his brows twitching, and said nothing. He flipped through the ledger, double-checked the transfer records, and nodded. The books are clear, neater than bank records. Uncle Zhao, the monthly exam is half a month away. I really can't keep up with everything. Lin Shi closed the ledger and spoke evenly. Merge old Wang's deliveries with yours. You handle all unified settlement, and I will split the proceeds following our old arrangement. As for Uncle Liu, halt further deliveries once this batch is settled. We can resume after my exams. Understood. Zhao Dihao asked no further questions and tucked the ledger back under his arm. Pausing at the doorway, he glanced back. Focus on your exams. Once they're over, bring your bugs over. I'd like to see how they've grown. All right. He hesitated again in the doorway. That boy from the Zhou family has been going around the village lately buying large quantities of ironware, supposedly to craft equipment for his orc followers. Keep your guard up. Lin Shi hummed in acknowledgement and offered no reply. The door clicked shut. Lin Shi stood still for 2 seconds before returning to his bedroom and sinking his consciousness back into the divine realm. Accounts were settled, supply chain stabilized. All his focus returned to the insect hive. He needed a clear schedule to prepare for the monthly exam and to face his rival, who commanded orc followers. Early morning, March 13th. Lin Shi opened his eyes as sunlight fell over him. His subcutaneous blood vessels had grown noticeably thicker over the past week, his knuckles fuller, and his grip firm. He stood and rolled his shoulders, fine faint pops echoing from his joints. He walked to the window and pushed it open. Morning wind rushed in, carrying steam from street-side breakfast stalls below. The world carried on as usual, and no one knew what dwelt inside this room. He pulled up his statistics panel. Total insect swarm, 158,000. Worker bugs, 88,000. Blade bugs, 42,000. Acid spray bugs, 19,000. Or gnawing bugs, 9,000. He tallied faith gains one by one. 88,000 worker bugs generated roughly 0.008 points each daily, 704 points. 42,000 German Shepherd-sized combat blade bugs generated roughly 0.04 points each daily, 1,680 points. 19,000 Boar-grade acid spray bugs generated roughly 0.045 points each daily, 855 points. 9,000 or gnawing bugs generated roughly 0.015 points each daily, 135 points. Total, 3,374. Daily faith income, approximately 3,400 faith points. He ran the numbers. 14 days remained until the monthly exam. 14 real-world days translated to 140 years inside the divine realm. 140 years was enough for the swarm to undergo another full cycle of molting, adding mining yields, roughly 1,800 kilograms of refined iron, 3,600 kilograms of gray stone, and 300 kilograms of crude copper each day, worth approximately 5,000 points. Combined daily output reached 8,400 points. Monthly output would hit 250,000 points, and his outstanding loan stood at only 50,000. His phone lit up. A message from Zhao Lei popped up. Tomorrow is the last day to sign up for the monthly exam. Zhou Hao shouted in the class group yesterday that his orc tribe has hit 3,000 members. He's bragging we'll all see him take first place. LOL. Are you signing up? Lin Shi typed one character in reply. Yes. He set down his phone and gazed out the window. Nobody knew that on an ordinary bed in an old residential complex on the eastern side of the city sat a teenager who commanded 158,000 insects. He pulled up the monster goods list. E-grade monster crystal cores cost 5,000 points apiece. He stared for a moment, then closed the page. No rush. Once mining profits flowed in, he would come back. Monday, March 14th, final registration day for the monthly exam. Lin Shi ran into Aunt Zhang in the stairwell as he left home. Carrying a vegetable basket, she halted at the sight of him. Xiaoxi, isn't the monthly exam almost here? Yeah. Study hard. Don't bring shame to your parents. She patted his arm and walked on. Lin Shi acknowledged her and headed downstairs. March morning wind carried dampness, and paulownia trees along the street sprouted fresh new buds. He stepped through the school gates just as the early self-study bell rang. Right after the second class ended, Zhao Lei leaned over and lowered his voice. Registration forms are in the teaching affairs office. Today is the deadline. Lin Shi stood up. Let's go. A dozen students representing different classes queued outside the office. A boy exited clutching his form, grumbling. Registering is more trouble than sitting the actual exam. When Lin Shi's turn came, the supervising teacher handed over a form without lifting his eyes. Monthly exam registration. Fill it out and sign. Name, Class, Awakening Rating, Divine Realm Area. His pen moved across the paper. When he reached the Combat Participation Intention field, the teacher added a remark. First round of the monthly exam evaluates prosperity rating. The second round is simulated combat. Will you sign up for combat? Yes. The teacher glanced upward, surprised. A student with a D-grade insect swarm talent volunteering for combat was unexpected. He asked no further questions and stamped the form. You're done. Zhao Lei peeked over. You're really signing up for combat? Only people like Zhou Hao do that. His orcs are built for fighting. Just practice. I want to give it a try. Back home after school, Lin Shi locked his bedroom door, sat down at his desk, and opened the trading platform. He navigated to the marketplace and began posting sell orders. His first batch, 500 kilograms of refined iron ore priced at 1.6 faith points per kilogram. The order completed in 3 minutes. Next, 1,000 kilograms of gray stone at 0.5 faith points per kilogram, sold out in 5 minutes. Third, 300 kilograms of crude copper at 4.2 faith points per kilogram, fully purchased within 7 minutes. He maintained a steady rhythm, posting new batches every few minutes. Each order size was calibrated to look plausible for a hard-working D-grade awakened student. Overly large single orders would trigger risk control algorithms, while tiny orders wasted time. From 7 to 10 o'clock that evening, more than 20 transactions concluded, every single one successful. Or stockpiled across 10 days cleared out, and new funds flowed in. Numbers scrolled across his terminal. 12,600 kilograms refined iron for 18,900 points. 25,200 kilograms gray stone for 12,600 points. 2,100 kilograms crude copper for 8,400 points. Ore sales totaled 39,900 points. Next came high-density chitin accumulated from insect molts. Over the past week, worker bugs had shed 3 times. Old cast-off shells were cleared out of the hives and stacked outside the sub-hives. Lin Shi had initially paid them no mind until he picked one up and discovered it was as hard as sheet metal, sharp enough to nick a finger. After the swarm consumed cattle bones, crocodile scales, and monster essence, the molted shells far surpassed ordinary insect materials in quality. High-density chitin was a staple commodity on the federal market, constantly purchased by armor manufacturing and pharmaceutical factories. He listed it in 6 separate batches at 2.1 faith points per kilogram, earning 6,300 points. Last was concentrated biological digestive enzymes. Digestive fluids extracted from ore-gnawing bugs and worker bugs possessed high purity. Ore-gnawing bug secretions dissolved stone, while acid spray bug secretions were far too corrosive for commercial use. Worker bug digestive enzymes, by contrast, were mild and stable, widely used by pharmaceutical factories to cultivate nutrient solutions. 500 liters sold at 5 faith points per liter for 2,500 points. The 4 revenue streams added up to 48,700 points. Together with 3 days of faith point generation, daily income had climbed from 3,400 to 4,100 points, totaling roughly 11,000 points over 3 days. His balance jumped from 0 to 59,800 points. Lin Shi stared at the figure and did not rush to spend it. He pulled up the monster goods list again. E-grade monster crystal cores cost 5,000 apiece. His finger hovered over the purchase button for 3 seconds. Then he closed the interface. Crystal cores ought to be bought on demand. His swarm had never fought a real battle. He could only guess at strengths and weaknesses. Throwing funds into upgrades now would likely waste half his capital. After his first real fight, he would fill whatever gaps appeared. Only then would every point be well spent. He opened the Federal Battle Network. Built federally for awakened students across the nation, the Battle Network was accessible to every enrolled awakened individual on Blue Star. Intelligent Systems read Divine Realm data, follower races, population, troop types, terrain, and created one-to-one virtual replicas for simulated combat. Users could match against awakened opponents from any city. No real-world harm or resource loss occurred. Only competitive rankings shifted with victory and defeat. The monthly exams combat segment ran on this exact system. Every match he fought here served as rehearsal for the exam. Lin Shi completed real name registration and bound his Divine Realm coordinates. Streams of data cascaded across the screen as the intelligent system scanned his realm. Divine Realm scan complete. Follower model, Rending Insect Swarm times 158,000. Terrain model, Wasteland/15-layer underground hives times 4 mineral subhives. Troop analysis, Worker bug/blade bug/acid spray bug/ore-gnawing bug. Replication fidelity, 1:1. He double-checked 3 times to confirm no scanning errors. The full model of his 158,000 insects had been imported intact into the battle network. Registration finished. His starting rank was bronze. The homepage streamed live national combat replays. Competitors from Imperial Capital, Magic Metropolis, Goat City, Mountain City, and countless other locations populated the matchmaking pool. 47,318 users were online. Lin Shi tapped matchmake. Matchmaking animation flickered across the screen. 1 second, 3 seconds, 5 seconds. The screen dimmed. 2 lines of text appeared. Match successful. Opponent, Shunlan, Shanghai Experimental High School, Imperial Capital, Senior Class 7. B-grade talent. Armored Rhinoceros Herd. Rank, Bronze. Imperial Capital. Shanghai Experimental High School. B-grade talent. Armored Rhinoceros Herd. For his very first simulated battle, he had drawn a B-grade opponent from one of the nation's top high schools. Lin Shi read the text, tapped his fingers lightly against his desk, and rested his hands on the keyboard. His first real fight would be against a B-grade opponent from the Imperial Capital. This would prove to be a grueling contest. The virtual battlefield unfolded before his eyes. A soft system chime echoed in his ears. Battlefield generated. 30-second countdown commenced. Lin Shi scanned the dry grassland stretching out around him. Knee-high yellow-green grass covered the terrain. A river cut horizontally across the distance, its surface glinting silver beneath virtual sunlight. Chewed-down shrubbery dotted the riverbanks, and low rolling hills rippled along the battlefield perimeter. Wind blew off the river, rippling through layers of grass. Fish leaped briefly above the water before splashing back down. The battle network rendered even these fine details. The armored rhinoceros herd waited assembled by the river bend. 3,000 individuals, more numerous than Lin Shi had anticipated. The lead bull stretched 3 meters long and stood 2 meters tall. Iron gray skin bore layered keratin armor plates scarred from wear, resembling rusted heavy plate mail. A thick horn jutted forward from its skull, its tip ground razor-sharp. Cows and calves clustered behind him, grazing, snorting white plumes of breath. The herd fanned out across most of the river shore. These were not rigid data copies. They swished their tails, sneezed, and calves nuzzled against their mothers. The realism felt unsettling. Her methods for raising such followers were not listed in her profile. The moment the insect swarm entered the battlefield, the wind died away. The scraping of tens of thousands of chitin shells carried far across the open grassland. 10,000 insects, 5,000 blade bugs, and 5,000 acid spray bugs poured out from behind the hills. A dense black tide washed over the grass. Restlessness rippled through the swarm. Blade bugs tapped their scythe limbs rhythmically against the ground. Click, click, click. Countless individual impacts merged into a deep, thrumming vibration. This was not fear, but battle frenzy. For the first time, they scented enemy prey and received kill orders. Their 6 limbs dug into soil, muscles tensed beneath hardened carapaces. Acid spray bugs tensed their rear ejection tubes, their abdomens swelling as they charged corrosive fluid. 2 translucent avatars descended high above the battlefield. 2 invisible shockwaves collided, flattening large stretches of grass. Opposite him floated a ponytailed girl in neat school uniform, Shenlong. Her avatar appeared faint, like thin mist. Her gaze traveled across the battlefield and settled on Lin Shi. Lin Shi's avatar stood more solid. He hovered above the black tide of insects. Faint dark gold patterns flickered behind him, the projected aura of the hive will. No grand gestures, no shouted words. He simply stood and overlooked the battlefield. Wind streamed past his feet as the insect horde surged beneath him. Shenlong could feel the oppressive weight radiating off his projection, heavy, dense, frigid, like cold pressure pressing against the nape of her neck. She had fought dozens of bronze-ranked opponents, yet never had an adversary filled her chest with such tension before combat even began. This opponent's aura felt heavier than A-grade top students she had encountered at her own school. She clenched her fists. Her rhinoceros herd rumbled low beneath her, staring at the onrushing black tide. For the first time, she worried her herd might lack sufficient numbers. "What rank are you?" she asked. Lin Shi offered no reply. He lifted one hand and pointed forward. The blade bugs advanced. 5 columns of 1,000 each spread outward in a fan-shaped flanking maneuver. They dropped low as they charged, 6 limbs pumping furiously. Grass blades were sliced apart by their scythes, leaving trails of green-gray debris in their wake. The stampede of 5,000 running bugs sent small stones bouncing across the riverbank and stirred fine ripples across the river surface. Acid spray bugs advanced in formation at the center, arranged in 3 ranks, their tail-mounted cannons raised toward the rhinoceros herd. The lead bull trumpeted loudly, pawing at the earth, and charged headfirst. 3,000 rhinoceroses followed close behind. Thunderous hooves kicked up vast clouds of dust. The ground trembled. Fine cracks split the virtual terrain, only to repair themselves automatically. The rhinoceros formation formed a sharp spear-tip wedge, horns pointed forward like an advancing iron wall. First contact. No deafening crash followed. Lightweight blade bugs bounced off rhinoceros hides, hit the grass, and scrambled back to their feet. They did not attempt to meet the charge head-on. They darted sideways, leaped onto rhinoceros backs, and drove their sides into gaps between armor plates. Blood welled out from sliced joints. Enraged rhinoceroses thrashed and flung the bugs off their backs. Dislodged blade bugs twisted mid-air, landed, and charged once more. Wave after wave harried the herd's flanks and hind legs from all 5 directions. Some blade bugs failed to dodge and were crushed beneath hooves or impaled by horns. Then the acid spray bugs opened fire. Hundreds of streams of dark green arced over the blade bugs and slammed into the rhinoceroses. This initial volley lasted 3 minutes and consumed 20% of their acid reserves. Accuracy remained mediocre. Some shots struck empty ground, hissing and smoking. Others veered 2 meters wide and singed grass black. Direct hits yielded mixed results. Acid bubbled across armor plates, charring pits into keratin without penetrating fully. Shots striking joint gaps brought screams of agony as rhinoceroses stumbled, flesh foaming from corrosive burns. Observing from above, Lin Shi saw everything clearly. Effective, yet insufficiently decisive. He willed a second volley from the acid spray bugs. Thousands of streams fired simultaneously. Abandoning scattered independent targeting, he directed every shot toward the mass of the rhinoceros herd. Trajectories aligned far more uniformly. Hit rates improved dramatically. Rhinoceroses began collapsing in clusters, hamstrung, blinded by acid, or disemboweled by blade bugs. Wounded beasts stampeded wildly, trampling and injuring their own herd mates. Friendly fire also took its toll. Several blade bugs were caught in the corrosive spray. The battle dragged on for nearly 40 minutes. Dozens of blade bugs swarmed the lead bull, pinning him onto the riverbank. His horn jammed into mud as scythes pierced his eye socket. He convulsed one final time and fell still. Silence descended over the battlefield. All 3,000 armored rhinoceroses lay dead. Lin Shi checked casualty statistics. Roughly 3,000 blade bugs were killed or critically wounded, impaled by horns, crushed by hooves, trampled after being thrown into enemy ranks, or slain by friendly fire acid. Acid spray bugs sustained 0 fatalities, yet more than half their acid stores were expended. Waste from poor accuracy was starkly apparent. The 2 avatars faced each other high above the ruined field. Shenlan's expression was grim. She opened her mouth, yet said nothing. Her avatar dissolved into scattered light particles and vanished. The virtual battlefield began deconstructing. Terrain fragmented into glowing grid blocks. Grass, river, bend, rhinoceros carcasses disintegrated piece by piece. The very last rhinoceros corpse dissolved into motes of light. Lin Shi exited the battle network and sat motionless at his dimly lit desk. Screen glow washed over his face as he mentally replayed every moment of those 40 minutes. He remained seated for a long time. He had won. A crushing, overwhelming victory. The first battle was over, but Lin Shi did not log out of the battle net. He had won the first fight far too easily, which left him uneasy. A single sample proved nothing. He needed several more test runs. The matchmaking queue refreshed, and he clicked to join the waiting list. Before long, a match was found. The random battlefield was an abandoned mining area, where most of the stone buildings lay half collapsed. In the distance, a row of firearms was mounted atop the wall. More than 2,000 green, skinned goblins crouched behind it, their pointed ears twitching nonstop. Money pouches at their waists bulged almost to bursting. The goblin leading them carried a firearm longer than a human, its muzzle gleaming brightly, and wiped it again and again with his sleeve. An Awakener's projection sat on a nearby wall. He was a round-faced youth. Spotting Lin Shi's swarm of insects, he whistled first. It's rare to see someone bringing bugs at the bronze rank. I'm Qian Chuan from Luqing No. 5 High School. My family runs a pawn shop. Relax, I don't pawn living creatures. I'm afraid my bugs would get eaten by yours, and I'd end up owing a huge compensation. Right before the battle began, one goblin on the wall was still shoving pebbles into its money pouch. It hefted the pouch after stuffing them in, tipped out 2 stones, then tied the drawstring tight. Suddenly, a horn blared. Rows of firearms aimed at the insect swarm, their barrels glinting silver in the sunlight. The acid spraying gun, worms fired their first volley. Acid shells slammed against the wall. Their hit rate was still unimpressive. Smoke and corrosive fumes billowed upward, obscuring the scene beyond. The blade, worms then charged forward. The goblins opened fire in return. More than 200 blade, worms in the front ranks tumbled under the hail of bullets. Yet the goblins were terrible at close quarters combat. It was not long before the insect swarm reached the base of the wall, and the tide of battle reversed. Soon all enemy units were wiped out. The battle lasted 3 minutes and 31 seconds. Losses: 512 blade, worms, 90, 7 acid, spraying gun, worms. Halfway through dissipating his projection, Qian Chuan was still cursing. I took a loss. This round was a total flop. I didn't even break even. Lin Shi jotted down his first set of data. Acid is effective against light armor, 1 shot per target. When blade, worms charge, they remain vulnerable to ranged fire. Their speed is insufficient. The next battlefield was a canyon. Wind howled through the valley mouth, pressing the grass flat against the ground and revealing its gray, white undersides. Opposite him hovered over 1,000 B-rank wind sprites, capable of flight right from the start. That felt like cheating. The sprites' translucent wings beat silently. Their awakener was a ponytailed girl named Wen Rinyu from Yun Shi No. 1 High School. She tilted her head as she gazed at the dense mass of insects on the ground. Are these bugs? How can they be this big? Her answer came in the form of an acid barrage. Lin Shi cranked the elevation angle to its maximum, launching more than 2,000 acid shells skyward. The wind blew, sending 40% of the projectiles smashing into the canyon walls. The rest barely hit anything at all. The wind sprites dove through gaps in the barrage, their wind blades carving furrows through the insect swarm. Blade, worms inside those gashes were sliced clean in two. The blade, worms leaped yet could not reach their foes, and could only rely on sheer numbers. 10,000 insects packed together into a seething black mass. 1,000 wind sprites mowed through them like reaping wheat, until their own sickles grew dull. Outnumbered though they were, the sprites ran out of stamina first. The moment their diving speed slowed, the barrage's hit rate began to climb. 1, 2, 3. One wind sprite after another plummeted into the swarm and was instantly swallowed. One of them reached up to smooth its acid, singed bangs before falling. All enemies eliminated. Battle duration: 24 minutes and 48 seconds. Losses: 1,803 blade, worms, 715 acid, spraying gun, worms. He replayed the wind sprite's flight paths in his mind. If only the acid could lead its targets, the thought flashed through his mind, and he selected to exit the match. His anti-air capabilities were inadequate. He had won this fight in an unimpressive fashion. Fortunately, the enemy had limited numbers, otherwise the outcome could have gone badly. His third opponent's profile held only one line. Pei Jin, Senior Class 1, Shanghai Experimental High School of the Imperial Capital. A. Rank talent, bronze rank. Familiar, half, dragonfolk. These people had only awakened 2 weeks prior. None had climbed very high in rank yet, but an A rank was still an A rank. Back at Lin Shi's school, even B rank students walked around with great swagger. The battlefield was a charred ruin. Cracks across the ground exuded heat and wafted the stench of sulfur. 1,600 half dragonfolk stood arrayed opposite him. They stood 2.5 meters tall, covered in dark, red scales, chains coiled around their claws, exhaling twin plumes of white steam. One within the formation yawned, bearing rows of fangs. Pei Jin's projection stood before his troops, far more solid than the projections Lin Shi had seen in the 2 prior matches. He folded his arms and said nothing. Lin Shi likewise kept silent. The ruin was so quiet one could hear the faint scrape of insect carapaces. Wind swirled through fissures, twisting clouds of ash and smoke between the 2 sides. The horn sounded. Blade, worms charged forward. The half dragonfolk met them head-on. Dragon claws smashed swathes of the first rank of blade, worms. The second rank clambered over the corpses of their kin. Half dragonfolk tore straight through the center of the insect formation, carving a scorched path filled with crumpled black insect husks. Acid barges crashed against their scales, fizzing and bubbling to eat away an outer layer, yet the scales underneath still glinted hard. The acid utterly failed to pierce their armor. Even so, the tide of insects overwhelmed them. Tens of thousands of blade, worms clung to each half dragonfolk, their sickles hacking at every gap between scales. 1,600 half dragonfolk fell one by one. The last was wrapped in a writhing black cocoon, struggled for half a minute, then crashed to the ground. Battle result: all enemies eliminated. Duration: 16 minutes and 9 seconds. Losses: 2,927 blade. Worms, 0 acid, spraying gun, worms. Before dissipating, Pei Jin's projection glanced at Lin Shi. Interesting. This battle was logged within the battle net archives. An A-rank genius from the Imperial capital had taken note of a bug, raising fighter at bronze rank. That was quite something. Scales were extremely tough. Head-on charges were brutally checked. Both defensive penetration and armor breaking capabilities needed improvement. Before logging off battle net, Lin Shi saw that he had risen to bronze tier 2. He exited the system and sat at his desk, summarizing for a long time. For battle reports lay spread open. A long list of shortcomings became clear, anti-air capability among them. He picked up his pen and refined the list further. 4 blade, worms, high hardness carapace, explosive muscle fibers, gliding membrane wings. 4 acid, spraying gun, worms, precision, fire glands, highly corrosive acid. 5 upgrades in total. Budget: 42,000. Remaining balance: 17,800. Perhaps he could also evolve a flying unit. It would be extremely useful in the early stages. On the morning of March 15th, the trading platform went online. He placed orders for all 5 items. For portions of stone, shell turtle essence meat, 12,000. 2 wind, fox crystal cores plus 2 portions of essence meat, 10,000. 3 live gliding lizards, 6,000. 5 live archer frogs, 5,000. 3 portions of bone, eroding lizard essence meat, 9,000. The gliding lizard seller's note read, live delivery guaranteed, replacements sent for casualties. He confirmed the purchase. At 2 o'clock in the afternoon, all goods were teleported to the Divine Realm via the platform's encrypted coordinates. Lin Shi closed his eyes and sank his consciousness into the Divine Realm. He began feeding the blade, worms first. As the first piece of stone, shell turtle essence meat was devoured, a shudder rippled through the hive mind. Turtle, shell protein genes were broken down, recombined, and integrated into the carapace cells. That night, fine tortoise, shell patterns surfaced across the blade, worms' carapaces. When the wind fox crystal cores were crushed, energy exploded outward from the hive's core. The hind, leg muscle fibers of the blade, worms visibly thickened. Whole gliding lizards were consumed. 3 hours later, thin membranous wings bulged out on either side of the blade, worms' dorsal carapaces. Evolution proceeded simultaneously for the acid-spraying gun, worms. Once the archer frog's projectile glands were decoded, fist-sized glands swelled on the gun, worms' necks. Their scattered arcing sprays transformed into compressed, focused streams. Accuracy now depended entirely on the precision of gland contraction. After feeding them bone, eroding lizard essence meat, their acid shifted from pale green to dark emerald green. When it struck stone slabs, it sizzled violently. By the evening of March 15th, evolution was complete. On the open ground of the Divine Realm, 10,000 newly upgraded blade worms stood in formation. They could accelerate to full speed twice as fast as 3 days prior. Leaping from a 10-meter cliff, their membrane wings unfurled. The overall insect population surged once more. The hatching nests had run non-stop for 3 days. When he counted that evening, 184,000 total. 26,000 newly hatched were combat units, 16,000 blade worms, and 10,000 acid-spraying gun worms. Their quality was worlds apart from what it had been only 3 days earlier. He withdrew his consciousness from the Divine Realm. Night had fully fallen. The monthly examination was 12 days away. It was time to give his classmates a shocking demonstration of the insect swarm. The alarm had not yet rung on the morning of March 16th when Lin Shi woke. He lay in bed staring into space for a while, then got up, sat at his desk, and opened his notebook to draft a rough plan. Attend classes by day. Reading over what he had written, he thought it sounded almost like a silly jingle. He really was extraordinarily gifted. From that day onward, his life ran like clockwork. He got up at 7 in the morning, sat through 4 morning classes, attended Divine Realm tutoring in the afternoon. He fought 2 matches, checked in on the Divine Realm, then slept. In the first week, he played 2 matches each night, 3 on weekends. In the 11 days leading up to the monthly exam, he never missed a single match and never lost one. Truly, he was a genius. Back in the Divine Realm, the insect swarm kept changing day by day. Blade worms grew from the size of German shepherds up to 1.2 meters tall. The tortoise shell patterns on their carapaces grew denser, and their folded membrane wings were barely visible. Acid spraying gun. Worms reached 1.5 meters in height. Their abdomens swelled, making them lumber about like mobile mounds of flesh. Yet their effective firing range had increased greatly. Their dark, emerald streams hit the ground and blasted craters in the blink of an eye, billowing thick black smoke. Worker. Worms evolved the ability to secrete composite chitin slurry. They built nests as easily as plastering walls, digging 3 additional layers downward beneath the main hive. Mineral crystals formed across the carapaces of, or eater worms. The insect population kept snowballing. Tunnels of the main hive burrowed ever deeper. Worker. Worms carried excavated soil to the surface, piling it into a gentle hill. Hatching nests operated around the clock, discarded eggshells stacking into mounds. Every night before logging off, Lin-Shi would stand at the heart of the hive. Beneath him stretched endless black carapaces. Dust hung thick in the air from the insect's respiration. Vast, surging collective consciousness washed over him. Faith. Point income rose visibly. Earnings had grown so large he barely bothered checking them. He glanced at his balance for 2 seconds, then closed the panel. Opponents came one after another on Battle.net. He had not taken the first 4 matches seriously, merely testing system mechanics, experimenting with different unit compositions. His 5th match pitted him against a summoner whose familiars were more than 400 gray wolves. The wolves charged straight at him from the start. Though the blade worms had not yet reached their full 1.2-meter height, they outnumbered the wolves 3-1. The wolves were surrounded and dragged down into the insect horde one by one. Frustrated by defeat, his opponent typed in chat, "Your bugs are way too overpowered." Lin-Shi replied with one word, "Yes." His opponent sent back, "I'm speechless with rage." Matches 6 and 7 were clean victories. On the night of March 18th, right after his 7th match concluded, he checked the time, 10:40. He could squeeze in one more match. Match 8 was his promotion match. The system searched for an opponent for 10 minutes. Su-hong, sophomore at Ching-Chung Vocational and Technical College, Silver Tier 4. Familiar, Iron, Armored Beasts. Whoa, a cross-rank matchup. Victory would advance his rank. Defeat would break his win streak. The battlefield was a stretch of mud flat. Opposite him stood more than 100 iron, armored beasts, each 3 meters long and clad in black armor. Their forelegs sank halfway into the mire. The Awakener stood atop the lead beast, chewing a grass stem. Seeing the insect swarm, he laughed first. "A bronze rank kid? Has the matchmaking system gone haywire?" Lin-Shi ignored the taunt and sent his insect swarm forward. Travel across the mud, flat proved far harder than anticipated. The blade worm's 6 legs sank halfway into the muck. The beasts were genuinely tough. Blade worm sickles struck their armor plates, spraying sparks. Dark, emerald acid streams struck the armor. Hovering in mid-air, Su-hong clapped. "Come on, keep this fight going a while longer. I'll grab my promotion points and be off." His smile faded soon afterward. The insect swarm began maneuvering in wide circles. Blade worms split into 2 groups and circled around to the beast's rear flanks. Acid spraying gun worms concentrated fire on the joints of their 4 legs, where observation had shown the armor plating was thinnest. The iron, armored beasts turned sluggishly, unable to defend both front and rear. Acid ate layer after layer through their hind leg joints, exposing pink flesh underneath. Blade worms lunged. 3 minutes later, the iron, armored beasts wailed and collapsed one after another. Staring in stunned disbelief, Su-hong managed to blurt out, "What kind of tactic is that?" "Isolate key targets for focused assault," Lin-Shi answered. "Though there are no reinforcements to draw away." System pop-up. Rank promoted to Silver Tier 4. A second notification immediately followed. With more than 10 consecutive victories, you have been added to the Federal High Priority Watch List. Keep up the good work. Lin-Shi stared at the High Priority Watch List notice for 2 seconds, then dismissed it with a scoff. No money, no extra resources. Being prioritized held no appeal for him. Over the next 5 days, fighting opponents at silver rank taught him many lessons. In match 11, he faced a wind-type Awakener commanding more than 300 hunting eagles. The eagles were extremely fast and hard for the insects to catch. After 20 minutes of combat, he forced the eagles down with blanket acid barrages and narrowly secured victory. Starting from match 12, he learned to scout first. He sent insects to probe the battlefield and study enemy troop deployments before deciding on his own unit formations. By the end of match 15, he had climbed to Silver Tier 3. On the night of March 20th, the total insect population surpassed 250,000, 60% of which were combat units. She stood atop the main hive and listened to the endless scrape of carapaces beneath him. 250,000 insects moved throughout the 28-layer hive, operating like a tireless war machine. A host of thousands. No, a host of countless insects. He watched for a while, then went to sleep. Daily school life carried on as usual. Zhou Hao was still boasting in class, declaring he would crush everyone in the upcoming monthly exam. Sitting in the third row, she never paused writing. During break, Zhao Lei leaned over and whispered, "Just how many bugs do you have now, anyway?" "Over 100,000, she replied. Zhao Lei's mouth fell open. He said nothing more and simply gave a thumbs up. "That's insane," he muttered before walking away. Over the weekend, she made a video call to his parents. Their connection was poor. The feed stuttered constantly and audio cut in and out. He had to listen twice to piece together whole sentences. The background showed gray, rocky cliff faces. His mother asked whether he felt confident about the monthly exam. He said yes. His father shouted from off camera, "How are the bugs coming along?" "They're doing well. Some are already as big as calves. I'll have a nice surprise for you when I get back." He fought 6 matches across the weekend and won all of them. On the night of March 25th, after match 19 ended, the system notified him, "One more victory will promote you to Silver Tier 2. March 26th, the day before the monthly exam. At 8 o'clock in the evening, he matched against a youth with the ID Qingyu, Silver Tier 2, whose familiar were more than 3,000 iron-feathered ravens filling the sky like a massive black cloud. Another anti-air combat scenario. His prior anti-air fight had dragged on for 40 minutes. This time he faced 3,000 foes. Shi stared up at the dark mass in the sky and thought back to the 1,000-plus wind sprites in the canyon, recalling the idea he had set aside back then. He needed flying units. This fight was an ugly one. Iron-feathered ravens dove to snatch blade worms, then wheeled away. Even cranked to maximum elevation, the acid-spraying gunworms posted terrible hit rates. Shi pulled his insect swarm into tight formation and ordered blanket fire barrages. Every time the ravens dove, they flew straight through sheets of acid. After 40 minutes of grinding attrition, the ravens exhausted their stamina and tumbled from the sky. Battle result, 20th consecutive victory. A system email popped up. "Congratulations, Awakener Shi. Your win streak has brought you to Silver Tier 2. Rewards will be delivered to Chingcheng City Education Bureau within 3 working days. Please await notification." Before logging off BattleNet, he checked his win streak record. 20 matches, all victories. He had climbed from Bronze Tier 3 all the way to Silver Tier 2 in 11 days. Reaching Silver Tier 2 was quite noteworthy news within Chingcheng City. Yet he had no time to dwell on it. He logged out of BattleNet. The screen went dark and silence returned to his room. Closing his terminal, he sank his consciousness into the divine realm, where matters far more critical than rank awaited him. Tomorrow would be the monthly examination. Prosperity rating, afternoon combat assessment. As he prepared for sleep, he mentally reviewed the 4 evaluation criteria: biology, resources, familiar power, and satisfaction. It was 11 o'clock on the night of March 26th. 10 hours remained until the monthly examination. Shi's consciousness descended into the divine realm, and he stood atop the main hive peak. Beneath him stretched an endless black sea. Closing his eyes, he let the hive mind conduct the census for him. Total population, 318,400. 106,000 support unit insects, 212,400 combat unit insects. When those numbers appeared in his thoughts, even he paused in surprise. Only half a month earlier, this place had held merely 200 rending worms. The divine realm was unrecognizable now. The main hive had expanded from 15 to 23 layers. 11 secondary hives spread outward along hematite veins, looking from afar like a string of dark, bulbous growths. Worker worms streamed in and out of hive entrances, each carrying globs of pale gray chitin slurry to plaster across the hive walls. Once dried, the slurry grew harder than stone, ringing dully when tapped and resisting blade scratches. Nest construction no longer required hauling rocks. The insects themselves were a living building material factory. Or eater worms clung to mineral veins. Mineral crystals on their backs glinted cold in twilight. Their mandibles worked nonstop, showering crushed or down below. They had evolved dramatically. Half a month prior they had only gnawed hematite. Now they could chew through obsidian veins. Their saliva contained mild acid that softened rock before grinding it down. Piles of raw or accumulated outside secondary hive entrances and were cleared every 3 days. He walked out onto what served as a parade ground, simply a wide, flattened clearing before the main hive. 10,000 blade worms stood in formation. At 1.2 meters tall, their carapaces bore dense layered tortoiseshell patterns, and their forelimb sickles glinted sharp. Lin Shi issued the charge order. The blade worms launched forward, accelerating nearly 40% faster than 10 days prior. Dust exploded where they landed, leaving shallow craters in the ground. Their dorsal membrane wings flared slightly mid-charge, catching wind to adjust their path, shifting the whole formation as one, moving with incredible smoothness. Next, he summoned a group of acid-spraying gunworms. Standing 1.5 meters tall with round, heavy abdomens that made them waddle, they lifted their nozzles. Dark emerald streams shot like javelins 300 meters to strike a cliff wall, blasting a half-meter deep hole that still smoked and smoldering at the edges. Range, accuracy, and corrosive power had all been drastically improved. Lin Shi stood in place for a long time, mentally reviewing the full state of his swarm. Then he noticed a problem. Orders were experiencing slight delays. Responses were no longer instant and seamless as before. He commanded 30,000 blade worms on the eastern side to turn southwest. A half-second passed before the formation stirred. The very last rank lagged another half-beat before completing its turn. He tested it a second time. Commands traveling across the consciousness links connecting 30,000 insects flowed like water through narrow piping, growing fainter and slower the farther they had to travel. Back when he commanded only 10,000 insects, a single thought synchronized the entire hive instantly. Now with 300,000 insects, the central hive mind was straining to sustain 300,000 independent mental connections. If left unresolved, this bottleneck would slow the swarm's overall development. Sitting in meditative trance atop the main hive, Lin Shi sorted through his thoughts. Next step: modifications and development goals for the insect swarm. First, flying units. Anti-air defenses among bronze and silver rank awakener forces were generally weak. Merely 92 wind sprites had caused him great trouble for 20 minutes, and 300 iron-feathered ravens had dragged out a 40-minute fight. Reconnaissance-capable flying insects could scout enemy layouts, support battlefield operations, and directly strike weak points or raid enemy home bases. Whoever possessed air power would hold dominion over the skies in early-stage conflicts. Second, brain bugs, another key unit for development. They serve as secondary command nodes to share the mental burden on the hive mother. 300,000 bugs are already stretching the hive mother thin. Double that number, and the command links would collapse entirely. Each brain bug manages a separate war theater, while the hive mother handles grand strategy only, creating a layered command structure. One brain bug for every 100,000 bugs, so chaos will not erupt even with larger swarms. Third, hydralisks based on StarCraft II lore. Ranged venom-spitting shooters, filling the gap left by acid spitter bugs' limited firepower. No matter how accurate the acid spray is, it follows a parabolic arc and can easily be dodged. Hydralisks fire fast, straight-line poison projectiles, perfect for picking off distant targets, and they pose a moderate threat against aerial units as well. Fourth, banlings. Re-engineered from blade bugs. They charge deep into enemy formations and detonate, showering foes with shattered chitin and corrosive acid. Whether used for decapitating key targets or shattering battle lines, they are far more cost-effective than having blade bugs grind through foes in close combat. These four concepts circled through his mind like four unfinished blueprints, filling him with motivation. Lin Shi logged each design deep within the hive will, though he would hold off on hatching them for now. The monthly assessment was drawing near, so resources must go toward existing troop types. These new blueprints would enter production only after the exam, when he could push toward the gold rank. He took one final look into his divine realm. 318,400 bugs swarmed through the 23-layered nest. Some sharpened their mandibles, others laid eggs, and more mined, or operating like a tireless machine. One minor event unfolded across those 11 days. On March 20th, the Education Bureau reward arrived. Per Qingchuan City policy for Silver Tier achievers, he received 2,000 faith points plus one random Grade D resource card. Lin Shi stowed the card away without opening it right away. He clearly remembered one scoring rule for the monthly assessment. Divine Realm building level, resource diversity, and vassal troop variety all contributed points. Saving the card to shore up weak points after the exam made far more sense than gambling on a random draw now. He tallied up his assets. His faith point balance sat just above 30,000. Waste material shipments from the Zhao family remained steady. Ore and chitin brought the Zhao family over 2,000 faith points and subsidies each month. After the Liu family terminated their partnership, The small supply share once held by the Wang family merged into the Zhao distribution channel, keeping his supply chain intact. Funds were modest, yet every unit steadily translated into combat strength. He exited his divine realm and checked the time. Late night, March 26th. In just a few short hours, the monthly assessment would begin. 2 unread messages waited on his phone. One was from Zhao Lei. Tomorrow's the monthly exam. How prepared are you? Don't embarrass me. Go give them a good beating face with tears of joy. Lin Shi set the phone aside and lay down. Bright moonlight poured through the window. Tomorrow would be sunny. And yet, the monthly assessment was coming. March 27th, just past 7 in the morning. The March wind still carried a chill, snapping flags at the school gate. The area outside the gymnasium bustled with twice the usual activity. All Senior 3 students sat for the monthly assessment today. Lower-grade pupils gathered in the distance to watch. Large screens at the entrance scrolled through exam rosters for every class. Zhou Hao stood atop the steps surrounded by a crowd. His booming voice carried halfway down the street. Last night, I outfitted all my orcs with iron weapons. My chieftain even got a horse-cleaving saber. First place in the monthly exam is mine for sure. Brother Zhou, word is your family gave you 500,000 faith points? That's strategic upfront investment. Zhou Hao puffed out his chest. Once this monthly exam wraps up, everyone will see that investment pays off. Behind the fence, 2 underclassmen craned their necks to observe. Is that Zhou Hao? B-grade berserk blood talent. Yeah. Rumor says his orcs are fully kitted out. He's going to crush this exam. What about the guy walking past just now? Who? Lin Shi, right? The only D-grade talent in the whole school, with F-grade vassals. His only saving grace is a somewhat large divine realm. Oh, the bug-raising kid. Nothing interesting there. Lin Shi walked along the edge of the steps, adjusting his backpack strap on his shoulder. Zhou Hao's gaze locked onto him, and he let out a laugh. Hey, bug boy, what score are you aiming for on the prosperity evaluation? Don't end up stuck in the lower mid-ranks and shame our class. Lin Shi kept walking without turning his head. What's that supposed to mean? It means stop worrying about me. I wouldn't want you messing up your own exam and trying to blame me for it. Zhou Hao froze for a second. Snickers rippled through the onlookers. His face burned with embarrassment, and he shouted toward Lin Shi's retreating back. Sharp words won't win you points. We will settle this in the exam hall, bug guy. Lin Shi ignored him. He suspected he carried some sort of sarcasm-provoking aura, though he had no proof. More than 600 Senior 3 students formed square formations by class. A row of translucent scanning pods stood at the center, with intellectual brain optic cables hanging from the ceiling and plugging into each unit. Chen Wanqing stepped to the main control console and tapped the microphone. This session is the prosperity evaluation. The intellectual brain will form a direct link with your divine realms. 4 scoring categories make up the total of 100 points. Scores display live on screen, and all data is permanently logged. No appeals against in-exam results. Contestants with grievances must follow official review procedures. She paused and scanned the crowd. Begin now. Silence fell over the assembly, broken only by the low hum of scanning pods. Evaluation proceeded class by class. Scores flashed across the large display screen. Class 1, Ma Qiming, 38 points. Class 2, Sun Qian, 41 points. Class 4, Zheng Hu, 46 points. Then came Class 7. Zhao Lei went first. Text popped up. Class 7, Zhao Lei, D-grade breeding affinity. A projection of his ranch unfolded. Hundreds of shaggy cattle grazed in pens, while over 500 fine wool sheep huddled together. Scores lit up one after another. Total creature count 12, resource output 20, vassal combat power 2, vassal satisfaction 9. Final score, 43. Zhao Lei climbed out of the pod, scratching his head, showing neither joy nor disappointment. Zhou Hao was next. Before entering, he held up a number 1 gesture toward Lin Shi. His orc tribe projection appeared. Nearly 3,000 orcs clad in polished iron gear. Their chieftain stood atop a boulder bearing the massive horse-cleaving saber. 500,000 faith points had expanded his force from 2,000 to almost 3,000, an impressive force for the grade level. Total creature count 20, resource output 14, vassal combat power 15, vassal satisfaction 8. Final score, 57. A smirk played across Zhou Hao's face as he exited, glancing around Class 7. It's fine, nothing special. Chen Wanqing's expression remained neutral. Next contestant. Su Qingyuan. A projection of an ice crystal palace lit up. More than 3,000 ice spirit clansmen stood in solemn formation before it, their bodies shimmering icy blue, exhaling puffs of frost. Scores. Total creature count 22, Resource output 16, vassal combat power 18, vassal satisfaction 12. Final score, 68. A hush swept the gymnasium, followed by collective gasps. An A-grade talent was truly in a league of its own, currently holding first place. Zhou Hao's expression shifted, yet he forced a smile. Well, she's A-grade, that's expected. Second place isn't bad either. Shortly afterward, it was Lin Shi's turn. Text flashed on screen. Next contestant, Class 7, Lin Shi, F-grade swarm breeding. Suppressed snickers came from the assembly. Lin Shi lay back inside the scanning pod, and the laughter died away awkwardly. Intellectual brain cables attached to his forehead, and his consciousness sank into his divine realm. He could feel hundreds of pairs of eyes piercing the pod. As the school's sole F-grade talent, everyone burned with curiosity to see what result he could produce. Scanning commenced. The main screen went dark, then text appeared. Synchronizing data. Abnormal data volume. Please wait. Chen Wanqing frowned. Indicator lights on the main console intellectual brain flickered 3 times, and another line appeared. Parsing vassal entities. Extended processing time expected. Murmurs spread through the gymnasium. Abnormal data volume? Just how much stuff is inside his divine realm? What can an F-grade have? A few hundred bugs at most. Before the voices faded, the screen blazed to life. Instead of separate score boxes, a full overhead view of his divine realm unfolded. An endless black swarm stretched across 1,000,000 square kilometers. 23 layered nests and 11 secondary hives dotted the landscape. Orvanes were covered in rows of ore-devouring bugs, with mountain-high stockpiles of mined material piled nearby. The camera zoomed in. Blade bugs stood 1.2 meters tall, their carapaces marked with tortoiseshell patterns. When they lined up, they formed an advancing steel tide. 600 people in the gymnasium drew breath all at once. Scores began popping up. Total creature count, 25. Resource output, 25. Vassal combat power, 12. Vassal satisfaction, 25. At the bottom of the screen, the final total illuminated, 87. Dead silence filled the venue. 3 seconds later, the gymnasium erupted. Shouts and exclamations from 600 contestants echoed toward the ceiling. Several spectators stood, trying for a better view. Terminals came out to take photos. A teacher from another class called for quiet, yet nobody paid heed. Behind the console, Chen Wanqing tapped her fingertips lightly against the tabletop, unable to fully suppress the upward tug at her lips. Zhou Hao shot to his feet, knocking his chair over backward. Impossible. Has the intellectual brain malfunctioned? How can F-grade bugs get such a high score? There must be something wrong with his divine realm data. I demand a review. Chen Wanqing lifted her gaze, her tone calm. The intellectual brain maintains a direct real-time link, with complete permanent logs. Are you questioning the federal evaluation system or the intellectual brain itself? Zhou Hao's mouth worked, his face flushed bright red. But the registered area for his divine realm was only. Registration values differ from measured readings. Chen Wanqing pulled the microphone closer. Next contestant. Zhou Hao tried to protest further, but a classmate tugged his sleeve, silencing him. He sat back down, eyes glued to the 87-point score displayed on screen, chest heaving. Lin Shi stepped out of the scanning pod. Every pair of eyes tracked his movement. He wore a neutral expression and returned to the Class 7 formation. Zhao Lei grabbed his arm, voice trembling. Bro, tell me honestly, is that really your divine realm? MHM, that's all you've got to say? Lin Shi turned toward him. The exam isn't finished yet. We shouldn't celebrate halfway through. Plenty of competitors have crashed after getting overconfident. No other participant generated comparable excitement during the rest of the morning prosperity evaluation. The compiled leaderboard appeared on screen. First place, Lin Shi, 87 points. Second place, Su Qingyuan, 68 points. Third place, a boy from Class 1 with 61 points. Rank 4 through 10 all sat in the 40s and 50s. At noon when the morning session ended, Zhou Hao blocked Lin Shi by the gymnasium exit, eyes bloodshot. Prosperity scoring only measures management skill. You just got lucky there. This afternoon's simulated combat will show real strength. I will crush you. Lin Shi walked around him and tossed a line over his shoulder. All right, see you in the exam hall. Zhou Hao stood frozen for a moment and shouted at his retreating figure. Don't get cocky. Lin Shi kept walking. He wondered what was going through Zhou Hao's mind. Those bugs of his could overwhelm Zhou Hao's vassals by sheer numbers alone, though the acid spitter bugs would do most of the actual work. Back in the classroom during the noon break, several classmates gathered around him. They hesitated for a long time before finally asking, Lin Shi, you're incredible. How did you pull this off? Lin Shi nodded briefly and offered no elaborate explanation. In a corridor corner, Su Qingyuan leaned against a window, twirling a pen between her fingers and watching him pass. You've built an impressive divine realm. Her tone gave nothing away. Don't hold back in this afternoon's combat match. Rest assured I won't. She said no more and walked off. 2 o'clock in the afternoon. Simulated combat, full-grade knockout tournament. 12 combat pods stood in the center of the gymnasium, paired by interlinked intellectual brain cables. It was strict knockout rules. 400 grade 12 students drew matchups. One loss eliminated you entirely, with no wildcard resurrection matches. Sun Lin, she drew pod number 3. His first opponent was He Bin from Class 3, a C-grade talent whose vassals were rock-scale lizard folk. Once the countdown hit 0, 200 lizard folk charged forward, tails lashing. Lin she sent out a token force of 5,000 blade bugs. The opposing force was wiped out in 38 seconds. The audience sat speechless. He Bin stumbled out of his pod, face pale. You call those blade bugs? They are bigger than dogs. Whispers spread across spectator stands. How is that Class 7F grade so powerful? Those blade bugs are 1.2 meters tall. How is that F grade? He topped the prosperity rankings this morning, and now he dominates actual combat too. Second match. Han Lei from Class 4, D grade. Vassals were venomous wasps. Swarms of wasps hummed through the air. Lin she deployed 5,000 blade bugs plus 500 acid spitter bugs. Acid barges forced the wasp swarm down to lower altitudes. Blade bugs then executed gliding leap assaults, ending the fight in 54 seconds. Third match, quarter-final round. Yu from Class 2, C grade. Vassals ironback werewolves. The werewolves possessed great speed, yet blade bugs were swifter still. The battle concluded in 1 minute 12 seconds as the wolf folk were hunted down. From 2 until 4 in the afternoon, knockout matches proceeded round after round. Lin Shi's matches were consistently the shortest, yet drew the most audience attention. While other contestants engaged in probing skirmishes, Lin Shi had already finished his battles. Zhou Hao also advanced steadily through the bracket. His 300 iron-equipped orcs cleared their quarter-final match in half an hour. His followers cheered loudly enough to echo across the whole gymnasium. At last came the semi-final, Lin Shi versus Zhou Hao. Before entering his pod, Zhou Hao pressed close to the glass partition and drew his thumb across his throat in a slashing gesture. Bug Razor, my 2,000 fully armed orcs are ready. My chieftain wields that horse-cleaving saber. Prepare to get cut down effortlessly. Lin Shi closed his pod door. The countdown reached 0. The battlefield was a rocky shore. Zhou Hao's more than 2,000 orcs formed battle lines. Their chieftain stood atop the highest rock, iron gear glinting under simulated sunlight. Zhou Hao's avatar materialized behind his army, his voice brimming with overconfident arrogance. You can still surrender now, before you end up humiliated. Lin Shi ignored him. He deployed 30,000 blade bugs and 30,000 acid spitter bugs. A black tide spilled across the rocky shore from Lin Shi's side. 30,000 blade bugs, each standing 1.2 meters tall, with tortoise-patterned carapaces and sharp scythe-like forelimbs. The scraping of their shells merged into a deep rumble. Zhou Hao's grin froze on his face. Instead of ordering an immediate charge, Lin Shi commanded the blade bugs to dig. Zhou Hao watched, confused. He held his orcs back from reckless assault, utterly baffled by Lin Shi's strategy. Normally Lin Shi finished fights within minutes. Yet this time he spent more than 10 minutes excavating a huge crater 300 meters across and 5 to 6 meters deep. Once digging finished, blade bugs encircled Zhou Hao's orc host completely and slowly herded them toward the pit. Simultaneously, Lin Shi pulled his acid spitter bugs back into position, aiming directly down into the crater. Before long, orcs were forced to the crater edge. Pressed by the bug encirclement, one after another tumbled into the depression. When the final orc fell inside, Lin Shi gave the order, acid spitter bugs, open fire. Zhou Hao burned with rage. When the last orc perished under corrosive acid, the match concluded. Total match duration, 30 minutes. Right before Zhou Hao's avatar vanished swallowed by the bug tide, his expression shifted from stunned disbelief to anger and fear. His gaze pierced through swarms toward Lin Shi. Where did you get so many bugs? Your official registration only listed 200. His avatar dissolved. Zhou Hao stumbled out of his pod, legs unsteady. He leaned against the pod frame to steady himself before finding his voice. You cheated. These are simulated combat simulations run by the intellectual brain. Lin Shi replied. Is that truly what you believe? Zhou Hao's jaw worked without sound. He stood rooted watching Lin Shi walk away, swallowing hard. He knew perfectly well the intellectual brain could not falsify results. He was simply consumed by bitter frustration. Grand Final, Lin Shi against Su Qingyuan. Su Qingyuan's Ice Spirit Army formed ranks on the northern battlefield. A projected ice crystal palace rose behind them. 3,000 ice spirits radiated biting cold, frost spreading across the ground beneath their feet. As the countdown ended, a frost domain expanded outward. Blade bugs attempting to charge forward had ice crust form across their carapaces, their movement speed visibly dropping. Lin Shi refused to commit to a head-on assault. He split his bug swarm for flanking maneuvers. Acid spitter bugs positioned themselves in the rear and fired arcing volleys. Streams of dark green acid sailed over the frost domain, hissing and smoking on impact inside ice spirit formations. Ice spirit spellcasters had to drop their frost domain to raise ice shield barriers, and at that moment, blade bugs closed in from both wings. 30,000 blade bugs fought on, reinforced by an additional 20,000. Su Qingyuan held out for 23 minutes and 12 seconds. Right before ice spirit forces were submerged under the black bug tide, her avatar stood upon the palace steps watching the dark flood cover all frost. She suddenly smiled. You hid your true strength very well. Her avatar faded away. Su Qingyuan exited her pod, showing little sign of defeat. She simply gave Lin Shi a long look. Good match. The grand final concluded. Full grade rankings were finalized. First place, Lin Shi. Second place, Su Qingyuan. Third place, Zhou Hao. The gymnasium loudspeakers were about to announce official results when Chen Wanqing walked over to greet a middle-aged man wearing gray uniform. Director Gao, from the Federal Education Division. Chen Wanqing handed him the microphone. Director Gao cleared his throat. Students, I am Director Gao from the Federal Education Division Inspection Team. My visit today serves two purposes: routine inspection and delivering an official BattleNet notice from the Education Bureau. He glanced down at his terminal. Lin Shi of Class 7. Senior 3, Qingchuan Number 3 High School. He has achieved Silver Tier 2 rank with 20 consecutive victories on BattleNet. This achievement is formally announced. One beat of silence hung over the gymnasium before noise exploded forth. Silver Tier 2 carried immense weight. In a third-tier city like Qingchuan, most top high school students barely scraped Bronze Tier 1. Silver Tier 2 was completely unprecedented among local high schoolers, and with an unbroken 20-win streak. Countless gazes locked onto Lin Shi, filled with shock, envy, and awe. Zhou Hao stood among the crowd, his face deathly pale. His orc army, the 500,000 faith points his father had invested, his boastful remarks at the school gate that morning, all had become a laughingstock. He stared at Lin Shi's back, shuddering, and quietly stepped backward to blend deeper into the crowd. Zhao Lei rushed over. Holy hell! Silver Tier 2. When did you grind those matches? Why didn't you say anything? You never asked. Zhao Lei was left speechless for a moment, before he managed. You are absolutely insane. Director Gao set down his terminal and studied Lin Shi for several seconds. He smiled. Lin Shi, this rank announcement is an official Education Bureau document. In a few days, representatives from the Education Bureau will come to the school to speak with you. Understood. Director Gao nodded, offered no further words, and departed. After school, class group chats blew up with hundreds of unread messages. BattleNet friend requests stacked high. Lin Shi muted his phone and stuffed it in his pocket. He walked out the school gates as dusk settled. Zhou Hao spotted him from afar, halted in his tracks, and crossed over to the opposite side of the street to avoid him. Lin Shi paid him no mind. His phone vibrated repeatedly in his pocket, which he ignored until he had walked 200 meters. He unlocked the screen. Class chat messages flooded the feed, all tagging him. At the very top sat a federal system mail. Silver Tier 2 reward funds will be transferred to the Qingchuan City Education Bureau on March 29th. Please await notification of collection. Only 2 days remained. He slipped his phone back in his pocket and headed home. Behind him, the large display screen at the school entrance still broadcast today's match report. Monthly assessment champion, Lin Shi. BattleNet Silver Tier 2, 20 consecutive wins. Qingchuan City would remember that name. Darkness had fully fallen by the time Lin Shi arrived home. He turned on the light using his phone flashlight, dropped his backpack on the sofa, and flopped back to make a video call to his parents. The connection rang many times before picking up. Long-distance transmission across the outer territories created heavy signal lag. The screen froze on a grainy shot of rocky cliff faces for quite some time before Lin Mu's image loaded. She was in an office, blueprints hanging on white walls, stacks of documents covering the desk. She wore work overalls with sleeves rolled up to her forearms, looking as though she had just stepped out of a meeting. His father sat beside her, spread out blueprints laid before him. Mom, Dad. Hey. Lin Mu's voice rose sharply. You finished the exam? How did it go? It's over. Your son got first place in the monthly exam. There was 2 seconds of silence on the other end. Lin Mu snapped her head around and shouted toward the side. Lao Lin, our son says he got first place. First place in what? Lao Lin's voice drifted over from beside the screen. The monthly exam? Can that bug of his really take first place? First place in the monthly exam. Top in prosperity rating, and top in practical combat too. Lin Mu turned the phone around. On screen, Lao Lin had been circling and annotating blueprints. He nearly dropped his pen and jerked his head up. Unfortunately, he had no hair to flip out of the way. Is that for real? Holding the phone, Lin Shi read out the battle report from that day. Prosperity rating 87, number 1 in the whole school. First place in the practical knockout tournament as well. And on the BattleNet, silver rank 2nd tier. It broke our local record. The Education Bureau even sent a formal congratulatory notice. Lao Lin set down his pen and pressed his swarthy face close to the camera. Did you actually raise those bugs? Yeah, I raised them. How big can they get? The largest one is a whole size bigger than a dog, around 1.2 meters long. Lao Lin fell silent, then burst out laughing. Nice work, kid. You've outdone your old man. I've spent my whole life in engineering and never brought home a school-wide first-place result. Once you finish the college entrance exam, I'll stew meat for you, a huge pot. We'll have a drink together. Also, let me see those bugs as big as young calves. At that size, can you even still call them bugs? Before he could finish speaking, Lin Mu slapped him on the arm. Don't listen to his nonsense. Lin Mu shot Lao Lin a sharp look and turned back to the screen. Xiao Shi, getting good grades is wonderful, but don't get cocky. Eat on time, sleep on time. If you're short on money, tell me. I'm fine, don't worry. I'm swimming in scholarship funds. Fine nothing. You have hundreds of thousands of those bugs now. Feeding them alone could drive you broke. Lao Lin cut in from the side. Want me to send you some extra dimensional or slag? I hear those stones are edible for bugs. Pay no mind to his terrible ideas. Lin Mu righted the phone. And don't let a little success go to your head. I won't. She asked again. That silver rank 2nd tier you mentioned, is that really impressive? It's decent. Decent means it's impressive. Lin Mu smiled. All right, I won't pester you anymore. I'm just happy you placed first. Get some sleep early. Lin Shi did not hang up right away. Mom, how are things over there with you two? Same old. Drawing blueprints, attending meetings, eating, sleeping. What about the rift? Any disturbances? Lin Mu paused and exchanged a glance with Lao Lin. Lao Lin pushed his blueprints aside. Lin Mu chose her words carefully. More people have been arriving at the base lately. The rift's energy readings have been fluctuating. Engineering teams are working overtime to keep watch, and the military has dispatched additional garrison troops. But don't you worry. Her voice softened yet remained steady. The base is guarded by soldiers, and many divine tier powerhouses are stationed here. No matter how big the commotion gets, it won't reach us. Just focus on your studies and don't fret over things out of your control. Lao Lin added from beside her. You hear that? If the sky falls, the soldiers will hold it up. Your mom and I are perfectly safe. As for you, don't rely on your swarm to go picking fights everywhere. I get it. Well, it's getting late, Lin Mu said. I've saved up a reward for you. You'll get it once you finish the college entrance exam. Okay. After ending the call, Lin Shi held the phone against his chest and stared up at the white ceiling for a while, mentally replaying everything he had just heard. Fluctuating energy readings from the rift, additional military garrisons. Mom said everything was fine. Lao Lin said everything was fine too. But they always shared good news and hid bad news. The mere fact that they had brought up the rift unprompted meant something was going on. He closed his eyes and sank into his consciousness. When he opened them again, he was standing atop the main hive. There were no lights in the god realm at night, yet the hive needed none. Gray-white cirrus fluid glowed faintly. Hive walls stacked upward layer upon layer, like a living building. Worker bugs streamed in and out of the hive entrance, smearing gray-white chitinous cirrus fluid across the walls. Acid sprayer bugs lay clustered together, their abdomens rising and falling. Blade bugs stood in formation on the drill ground. Lin Shi let the hive will take stock of his forces. 318,400 bugs, not one missing. He sent a reorientation order to 30,000 blade bugs on the eastern side. The formation moved, but the rear ranks lagged noticeably. The command link was growing sluggish. The single main hive will was straining to maintain 300,000 mental connections, and units at the far end were starting to lag behind. Flying units and brain bugs needed to be prioritized. He had already drafted 4 blueprints. Flying units first, brain bugs second, hydralisks and exploder bugs last. The first 2 were for survival. The latter two were for combat reinforcement. He had lacked anti-air capabilities ever since the bronze rank. Command bottlenecks had emerged once his swarm exceeded 200,000. Forcing the main hive to handle 300,000 connections single-threaded would collapse sooner or later. These two developments were his top priority after the monthly exam. Sitting on top of the main hive, he pulled out his terminal and opened the trading platform. He had kept an eye on several flying unit materials during the monthly exam. Now that the exam was over, it was time to seriously plan his purchases. Wind plumage bats, a D-rank flying species filed in the Federal Gene Bank. 2-meter wingspan, nocturnal, hunting via sound waves. A standard high-mobility reconnaissance template, perfect as the base for his flying units. 2 live specimens were listed for sale, plus wing muscle tissue and lightweight carapace parts. Altogether, it was no small expense, and his current balance of just over 30,000 points was still insufficient. He added the wind plumage bat materials to his shopping cart as top priority and placed a pre-order. The monthly exam rewards arriving tomorrow, the silver rank second-tier commendation the day after, plus a loan he planned to apply for would cover these orders. Still, he did not intend to activate everything all at once. Resources had to be invested in sequence. One could not become powerful in a single leap, and neither could a bug swarm. Wind plumage bats, flying creatures. Lin Shi stared at the name for a moment. Over 1,000 wind spirits had worn him down for 20 minutes. More than 3,000 iron feather crows had cost him 40 minutes of effort. Anti-air defense remained his most painful weakness. These materials were meant to fix exactly that vulnerability. The most valuable part of the wind plumage bat was not its wings, but its sonic organs. Nighttime reconnaissance, full 360-degree perception in darkness. If his flying units carried this capability, anti-air early warning could activate several seconds sooner. He opened both live wind plumage bat listings. The seller had good reviews, encrypted coordinates, and delivery upon payment, reliable. He scrolled further down the platform. Materials for brain bugs, poison glands for hydralisks, explosive glands for exploder bugs were all available. At varying prices, he compared seller after seller, marking items matching his 4 blueprints. Once funds arrived, he would buy them one by one. No impulse buying, no chasing inflated prices, proceed step by step. His funds were limited and had to be spent where they mattered most. He had already run the numbers. Monthly exam rewards, silver rank commendation, plus the loan would cover unlocking these new unit lines. Yet expanding the swarm to 500,000 individuals meant long-term costs for feed and upkeep. He would need to watch market trends and act opportunistically. There was no rushing this. He mentally reordered his blueprints. Flying units first, brain bugs second, hydralisks and exploder bugs afterward. Waiting until the first 2 were operational. He exited the God Realm and opened his eyes to see the familiar ceiling. His phone lit up with a new message. Chen Wanqing, come to the office tomorrow morning to collect your monthly exam rewards. Bring your student ID. Lin Shi replied, received, and set down his phone. He mentally reviewed tomorrow's errand, rolled over, and slowly fell asleep in the dark. On the morning of March 28th, right after the second period's bell rang, Lin Shi headed for the teacher's office. Chen Wanqing was already waiting for him. On her desk lay a stack of documents and a silver-gray card. Seeing him enter, she set down her pen and gestured to the chair opposite her. Sit. There are 2 rewards for this monthly exam. First, 100,000 faith points. The school administration will transfer them to your account shortly. Check it later. She picked up the stack of documents. Second, a D-rank construction card. Lin Shi took the card. Silver-gray surface, same style as his earlier incubation hearth. He pressed his thumb against it and channeled faith into the surface. Text appeared. D-rank construction card, draw result. Blood pool, breeding chamber. A breeding structure for developing vassal units. New unit incubation speed increased by 20%. Stacked with the incubation hearth, it would squeeze extra efficiency out of his incubation chambers. Did you activate it? Chen Wanqing asked. Blood pool, breeding chamber. It can nurture my vassals. Lin Shi stored the card away. Perfect for easing pressure on my incubation slots. Chen Wanqing nodded without further questions and pulled a form from the documents. There is also the loan. Top 20 students in the monthly exam qualify for the federal interest-free loan. As first place, your maximum credit limit is 2 million. Fill in how much you want. Lin Shi took the form and scanned its fields, requested amount, purpose statement, repayment plan. After some thought, he filled in 1,500,000. The loan bore no interest, yet he should not take more than necessary. He left 500,000 as a reserve. What should I write for purpose? Write God Realm Operations and Expansion, Chen Wanqing told him. You could write Bug Raising too, the AI. We'll audit it either way. Lin Shi finished filling it out and handed it back. Chen Wanqing filed it away and did not dismiss him immediately. She leaned back in her chair and studied him. Lin Shi, the monthly exam is over. Next comes the college entrance exam. Do you know what it entails? Isn't it just written examinations? Written tests are only a formality, Chen Wanqing said. The real assessment is the secret realm trial. The Federation arranges it uniformly. All examinees enter the same secret realm, interact with native inhabitants, compete for resources against awakened students from other cities, spirit plants, monster hunting. Your final score depends on what you harvest. How long you survive inside and how many resources you seize determine which university you get into. She paused. Your bug swarm may prove far more useful in the secret realm than it was in the monthly exam. But it will also make you a prime target for others. Inside the secret realm, there are no referees, no permanent AI records. If someone robs you, you lose it. Think carefully. Understood. Just understood. I've thought it through. One more thing. Chen Wanqing pulled another form out of her drawer. You qualify for this year's early admission recruitment for the college entrance exam. Early admission. The assessment is identical to the official exam. Enter the secret realm. It takes place earlier, with fewer spots, awarded on a first-come basis. All participants are top talents. If you pass, your admission offer locks in immediately, and you do not need to sit the official exam. However, it does not disqualify you from taking the official exam later. She pushed the form toward him. Fill it out and hand it back to me. The Education Bureau will conduct a secondary review. Wait for further notice. Chen Wanqing looked at him for 2 seconds and waved him off. Go. Loan approval will take several days. I will notify you once the funds arrive. She paused briefly. All right. During afternoon tutoring class, Zhao Lei blocked him in the hallway and lowered his voice. How much was your reward? 100,000 points plus a construction card. 100,000. 100,000 faith points. I drew a blood pool breeding chamber. Zhao Lei's mouth hung open for a long moment before he closed it. Finally, he forced out a sentence. You owe me a treat. Sure, cafeteria food. The cafeteria doesn't count. What do you want then? Barbecue. Lin Shi considered it. I'll treat you after the early admission trial. Zhao Lei's eyes lit up. It's a deal. March 29th, Saturday. It rained all day in Qingchuan City, filling the air with dampness. Holding an umbrella, Lin Shi squeezed onto a bus and rode all the way to the Education Bureau. The Education Bureau building stood in the city center, a pale gray structure bearing the Federal Star emblem above its entrance. The guard checked his student ID and his appearance before letting him pass. This time of year, many students came to collect commendations, so he was used to such visitors. The silver rank second-tier commendation. Per Qingchuan City policy, 200,000 faith points. Counter staff verified his identification and rank records, working quickly. They glanced at him curiously. Lin Shi? The student praised in last week's BattleNet announcement. That's me. Silver rank second tier, 20-match winning streak. The staff member looked up, tone tinged with admiration. You are the first high school student in Qingchuan City to pull that off. Do well in your exams. I will. Check your account later. 200,000 points have been deposited. Lin Shi nodded and stood in the lobby for a moment, looking around. A public display screen cycled through a notice. The 287th College Entrance Exam, Star Abyss Secret Realm Examinee Guidelines. Secret Realm Activation Time, Supply Lists, Team Formation Rules, Safety Notes. He stood before the screen and read it twice, memorizing key details. Star Abyss Secret Realm. Opening in early June. Vassal units permitted. Team formation allowed. 3 persons per group. Scoring based on acquired resources. Points could be exchanged for university admission qualifications. Native inhabitants, Star Abyss natives. Neither outright friendly nor hostile toward outsiders. Trade is possible if customs are respected. Small print at the bottom of the screen. Early admission recruitment applications open now. Back home, he took off his coat and sat at his desk, mapping out his path forward in his mind. The college entrance exam would take place inside a secret realm. Star Abyss Secret Realm, filled with native inhabitants plus awakened examinees from all cities competing for resources. Scored by harvest. His swarm strengths were straightforward. Overwhelming numbers, fast gathering, omnivorous diet, no logistical supply needs. When hungry, they forage for themselves. Spirit plants, or veins, monster corpses inside the secret realm were resources for others, but gene sources for him. His weaknesses were equally clear. Individual units were only rank 1. They could not stand against powerful foes. Therefore, 3 things needed completion before the college entrance exam. Unlock flying units to give him eyes in the sky. unlock brain bugs to fix command link bottlenecks, develop hydralisks and exploder bugs if the budget allowed. The blood pool breeding chamber would boost incubation efficiency and help new units enter service sooner. Teamwork was encouraged in the secret realm, yet so was individual performance. He had no intention of joining a group. His bug swarm was his entire army. More teammates meant fewer points for himself. Lone wolves had their own way to survive. First get air power and stable command, then adapt to whatever came next. He checked his God Realm's daily output, a net gain of 1,140 faith points. Monthly exam rewards were already in hand. The loan was still pending approval. Once funds arrived, his budget for unlocking the 4 new blueprints would be more than sufficient. He opened his terminal, added wind plumage bat wing muscle and lightweight carapace materials to his shopping cart, then browsed past examinee strategy guides for the Star Abyss secret realm. Past participants summed up one lesson. The most valuable resource in the secret realm was not monster materials, but territory. Whoever controlled more vassals, more people, more teams could seize spirit, ore, and spirit plant zones and accumulate points passively. He confirmed his pre-order, waiting for the loan to clear before finalizing payment. Also in his shopping cart were mist demon brain cores and arrow lizard spines, materials matching his 4 blueprints. He reviewed each entry without rushing to buy, waiting until his budget was finalized. Before sleeping, he thought about the newly built blood pool breeding chamber in his god realm. Dark red troughs had appeared beside the incubation chambers. Worker bugs poured serous fluid inside, and new batches of eggs soaked within. 100,000 points from the monthly exam received, 200,000 from the silver rank commendation deposited. With the loan, his budget for 4 new unit blueprints was fully secured. Linshi drifted off to sleep amid the patter of rain outside his window. The next morning, after washing up and heading out, several lower-grade students shouted "Bug Guy" as he passed the school gate. He nodded and hurried into the teaching building. Before morning reading ended, Chun Wanqing walked in carrying a stack of documents and set them on the podium. These are the monthly exam comprehensive reports, generated by the AI based on your God Realm data. Take one each and reflect on your weaknesses. Pages rustled across the classroom. Today we will talk about vassal unit ranks. Chun Wanqing tapped the blackboard. Ranks 1 through 20 are divided into 8 tiers. Levels 1-3, primary. Levels 4-6, intermediate. Levels 7-9, advanced. Levels 1012, hero tier. Levels 1315, epic tier. Level 16, legend tier. Levels 1719, demigod tier. Level 20 and above, divine tier. The classroom fell momentarily quiet. She picked up Zhao Lei's report. Zhao Lei, your hair cattle and fine wool sheep are nearly rank 0. Zhao Lei scratched his head awkwardly. Zhou Hao, your orcs are mostly rank 2, a small number rank 3. Su Qingyuan, Ice Spirit Clan. Starting at rank 3 thanks to your B-rank talent, very few reach rank 4. Lin Shi. She paused upon saying his name. Your hundreds of thousands of vassals are all rank 1. However, your main hive is rank 4, and satellite hives are rank 3, though immobile. Someone snickered and stifled their laughter. What are you laughing at? Chun Wanqing raised her gaze. Most of you have worse quality than him. Never mind his sheer numbers. Zhou Hao leaned back in his chair, barely suppressing a smirk. What good are more bugs? Once my orcs level up, they can wipe them out with a gesture. Chun Wanqing glanced at him. Your orcs average rank 2, and you do not even have as many as Lin Shi. Lin Shi stared down at his report without speaking. He had reviewed his swarm recently. 318,000 units, nearly all rank 1. His bugs advanced through gene integration, unlike others whose vassals improved via cultivation. In other words, others produced handcrafted premium units, while his were mass-produced assembly line products. Seated at his desk, he twirled his pen in his fingers and mentally calculated. 4 new unit types were already finalized. Wind plumage bugs, brain bugs, hydralisks, exploder bugs. Level 1 to 2, level 2 to 3, each rank up drastically improved individual combat power. But his path differed from everyone else's. He needed suitable gene samples to boost the strength of his entire swarm. Even a small gene sample, processed by the main hive, could trigger mass upgrades for his whole species. After class ended, Chun Wanqing called him over. If you want to raise ranks, search for evolution materials on the trading platform. Materials for rank 1 to 2 cost 3 to 5,000 points. Rank 2 to 3 doubles in price. Expensive, yet cheaper than replacing your entire unit roster. She paused. Your family does not have abundant funds. Do not overspend. Act within your means. Lin Shi nodded. Thank you for the reminder, teacher. At 8 o'clock that evening, his phone vibrated. A Federal Bank text message. Loan of 1,500,000 points has been disbursed. Please check your balance. He stared at his updated balance and opened the trading platform. He had already planned exactly how to spend this money the night before. First, purchase flying unit genes, 2 wind plumage bat specimens for 12,000 points. Next, brain bug materials, 3 mist demon brain cores for 36,000 points. Then hydralisks, 5 sets of arrow, lizard spines, and poison glands for 28,000 points. Then exploder, bugs, 3 living blast, rock beetles for 24,000 points. Finally, large quantities of meat. Bug, swarm evolution required many trial and error attempts, consuming massive energy. Lin Shi bought large stockpiles of meat and other high-energy feed. Order total displayed, 210,000 points. Without hesitation, he confirmed payment. Now that he had funds, this expense was trivial. At 9 o'clock, goods arrived in his god realm via encrypted platform coordinates. Lin Shi closed his eyes and sank into his consciousness. First, he analyzed the wind, plumage bat, flight genes. 3 hours later, analysis finished. Lin Shi issued production orders. Soon, 800 newly hatched wind, plumage bugs emerged. 2-meter wingspan, bodies covered in carapace plates. Lin Shi ordered them to take flight. They circled the main hive 3 times, lifting off completely silently. He tested their sonic capabilities. 10 wind, plumage bugs targeted 1 blade bug. The blade, bug's body exploded from within. Impressive power. Output strength was adjustable. High power settings killed foes unseen. Low power settings enabled echo, location reconnaissance. Truly multi-purpose units. Mist, demon brain cores went into another incubation chamber. 5 brain bugs broke out of their shells. 1 meter tall, large heads and small bodies, tentacles swaying gently. He reassigned command of 100,000 Eastern Blade bugs to the first brain bug. Orders were relayed, and the formation turned nearly simultaneously. No more high delay, like lag, similar to playing online games with bad connection. He issued a complex command. Eastern Blade bugs split into 3 waves, turned southwest sequentially with a 2-second interval between each wave. 3 waves shifted like flowing water, perfectly coordinated. Previously, commands would break down by the 3rd wave. After analyzing arrow, lizard spines, and poison glands, 1,000 hydralisks hatched. 2-meter long bodies, 3 rows of glossy, green barbs along their backs. When their mouth parts opened, a poison barb pierced rock 300 meters away, leaving a tiny hole. 800 exploder bugs also emerged, modified from existing blade bugs. Round bellies filled with acid sacs. Their waist-mounted wings were larger than ordinary blade bugs, improving maneuverability and gliding range. Coordinated with wind, plumage bugs, their combat effectiveness would be formidable. Near dawn, he stood atop the main hive and took stock. Total swarm count, 321,003. 800 wind, plumage bugs, 5 brain bugs, 1,000 hydralisks, 800 exploder bugs, all rank 2 units. Overall combat strength had risen sharply. There was still a long way to go in rank advancement, but he now had a clear direction forward. Exiting the god realm, daylight streamed through the windows. Without resting, he logged onto battle.net and queued for matches. Back in bronze, tier 3, his opponent had been the B-ranked genius Shenlong. At silver, tier 4, he had fought Su Hong. Each rank brought new opponents. Silver, tier 1 was the peak of the silver ranks. Beyond that lay gold tier, where he would likely face even more powerful foes. A system prompt popped up in the match queue. Silver, tier 1 promotion match. Win 5 consecutive matches to advance. Current record, 0/5. 10 seconds later, match found. Opponent profile loaded. Shun Zhao, Dixing Shanghai Experimental High School, Senior Class 2, Silver, Tier 1. Vassals, Frost Giants, 450 units. Reviewing the roster. Minimum rank 3, 50 units, at rank 4. Not good. He needed to produce more new units. 5,000 additional wind plumage bugs, 5,000 more hydralisks, 10,000 more exploder bugs. He closed the opponent's profile, pocketed his phone, and headed out. He would fight his first promotion match tonight after returning home. Lin Shi arrived home when night had fully fallen. Spring nights in Qingchuan City still carried a chill. Streetlights stretched pedestrian shadows long across the pavement. Distant lights bloomed across rows of homes. Wind rushed in from the alley mouth, sending scraps of trash skittering along the ground. Downstairs, the convenience store lights stayed on. Behind the counter, the shop owner's wife watched videos. Her laughter drifted faintly through the glass, muffled and far away. She pulled out his keys and unlocked the door. He flipped on the light in darkness, tossed his backpack onto the sofa, and without sitting down, walked straight to his desk and booted up the Battle.net terminal. The screen lit up to display the Versus interface. Opponent, Shun Zhao, Senior, 3 Class 2, Shanghai Experimental High of Imperial Capital. A. Ranked Talent. Familiar, Frost Giant. Their scheduled duel would begin in little more than 10 minutes. Before entering the battlefield, his consciousness sank into his divine realm for a quick check. All the hatchery orders placed that morning had finished hatching. Windplume insects numbered 5,800, hydralisks 6,000, and burst bugs 10,800. Shi planned to bring every newly born unit into battle. Adding to that were 30,000 blade bugs, 20,000 acid spray bugs, and 5 cerebrates to accompany the army. Once his inventory check concluded, he pulled his awareness back and tapped to enter the battlefield. The battlefield stretched across an endless wasteland. Wind howled off the horizon, swirling dry grass and sand. The sky hung ash-gray, and a low earthen ridge rose in the distance. Behind that ridge stood 450 frost giants arrayed in formation. Each stood over 3 meters tall, encased in frosty white ice shells. Their exhalations condensed into white mist that settled as thin frost upon touching the ground. 50 giants in the front rank towered half, again higher, ice shards hanging from their shoulders. These were level 4 frost giants. Shun Zhao's holographic projection stood at the center of the formation, arms folded. At the sight of the surging black swarm pouring forth on the opposite side, he raised an eyebrow. A bug-see tactic? His voice carried across the wind. In Silver Tier, I fought plenty who rely on swarms. Raw numbers mean very little at Shanghai Experimental. Shi said nothing. Standing at the rear of his swarm, he finalized command links for his 5 cerebrates and gave his first order. First test assault, blade bugs, charge. 30,000 blade bugs shot across the wasteland. Their membranous wings unfurled, catching the wind as they glided forward, a dense black tide sweeping low over the grass toward the enemy. The 450 frost giants moved as one. Front, ranked giants dropped into crouches. Those behind swung massive fists or brandished crude weapons. When the foremost blade bugs closed to 20 meters, one giant stomped hard. Cracks spiderwebbed outward through the earth, sending dozens of insects flying. Fists and weapons crashed down right after, crushing swarms at a blow. Bug viscera smeared across the giants' ice shells. Acid spray bugs opened fire from both flanks. Streaks of dark, green fluid slammed into the giants' chests, hissing and eating through layers of ice, shell to expose flesh beneath. Yet frigid cold welled forth, instantly freezing the wounds shut. The thick hides of level 3 and 4 giants made the acid strikes little more than annoyances, barely gnawing through the ice shell armor. Within 3 minutes, over 10,000 blade bugs had perished. The level gap was enormous. Shi frowned and ordered the swarm to fall back. The blade bugs retreated like a receding tide. The giants did not give chase, merely stood their ground and watched. Shun Zhao's projection let out a short laugh. Is that all? I'm curious what other tricks you have left. The opening probing engagement ended. Shi split the surviving blade bugs into 6 detachments. They pressed in once more from all directions, avoiding close combat, while circling constantly to force the giants to turn. Acid spray bugs scattered as well, operating in packs of 3 to 500. They circled the giants, aiming exclusively at knees and leg joints. The frost giants turned sluggishly. When blade bugs darted left, they twisted leftward. When threats surged from the right, they spun right again. Gradually, the frost giant formation began to unravel. Hydralisks advance. 5,000 hydralisks deployed along both flanks. 3 rows of spines rose along their backs. Their maw parts opened, and streams of dark, green poison barbs flew straight, piercing locations already damaged by acid fire. Thighs, waists, shoulders. Though the thick flesh of level 3 giants halted the barbs 2 inches inside their bodies, 5,000 projectiles loosed at once, combined with prior acid damage, found gaps in joints on occasion. More than 30 giants crumpled to their knees. Swarms of outer blade bugs swarmed over them, tearing open their knee joints to kill them outright. Shun Zhao's expression shifted. He lifted a hand. Giants in the front rank bent down, seized boulders as large as millstones, and hurled them. Rocks smashed into the hydralisk ranks, spraying gore and crushing over 200 insects into pulp. The surviving hydralisks pulled back 50 meters, and kept firing spines. Throwing rocks, huh? Lin Shi acknowledged the tactic. He pulled up the command channel for wind plume insects. Your turn. Swarms of burst bugs had already lined up. Wind plume insects descended. 2 to 4 burst bugs clambered onto each flyer, claws hooking into gaps in their carapaces, their swollen, explosive abdomens pressed tight against the insects' backs. The wind plume insects took flight. Their wings beat almost silently as they circled wide, slipping toward the rear flanks of the giant formation. Level 4 frost giants detected the threat first. They looked upward and spotted the incoming swarm, hurling boulders skyward. Stones tore through the aerial units. A dozen wind plume insects were struck down, yet their burst bug cargo dropped among the frost giant ranks. Detonations sent nearby giants flying. More wind plume insects kept coming, a dark cloud hovering over the formation, then released their grip simultaneously. Countless burst bugs plummeted down into the mass of giants. Detonations merged into one continuous roar. Acid, shattered chitin, and shockwaves ripped through the enemy ranks, spreading like wildfire across a wheat field. Level 3 giants were blown over and tossed aside, their ice shells ground to fine dust. Even heavily armored level 4 giants could not withstand stacked blasts from 2 or 3 burst bugs each. They stumbled and sank to their knees in soil. The wind plume insects did not pause. After dropping one payload, they banked, circled around, and returned to deliver the rest of their burst bug ordnance. After this wave of aerial drops, the wasteland fell silent for 2 heartbeats, followed by a heavy chorus of bodies collapsing. And this was only 1,000 wind plume insects. While explosions raged, hydralisks and unloaded wind plume insects struck finishing blows. Blade bugs seized every opening. Acid, spray bugs contributed little meaningful damage, their fire barely scratching high-grade armor. More than half of the 450 frost giants lay dead. Xin Zhao's projection stood amid scattered rubble, his amusement gone for the first time. He stared at the black carpet of insect corpses on the ground behind Lin Shi in the dark sky, filling mass of wind plume insects overhead, his face grave. Surviving giants spread out and began hurling stones frantically. Boulders flew everywhere, mowing down blade bugs in swarms. Yet the insect horde was simply too vast. Acid, spray bugs continued their circling assaults. Hydralisks drew back to 300 meters and kept launching poison spines. Wind plume insects swooped low, unleashing sonic pulses from their oral organs. Wounded giants clutched their heads and crumpled, quickly engulfed and torn apart by blade bugs. No matter how many rocks they threw, they could not exterminate this black tide. Lin Shi sensed the moment the battlefield tilted fully in his favor. General assault. All 5 cerebrates broadcast the order into the collective consciousness of the swarm. First, 2,000 wind plume insects dropped burst bugs to shatter and disrupt what remained of the enemy formation. Then blade bugs closed in from every side. Acid, spray bugs moved forward to unleash point-blank sprays. Hydralisks formed a firing line. Wind plume insects circled overhead, creating openings for ground unit advances. The last 40-odd frost giants huddled back to back, swinging fists and hurling rocks, crushing wave after wave of attackers. Another wave of burst bugs descended upon them. Right after the explosions, insects clambered upward over mounds of their own dead, layer piling upon layer. Soon, outermost giants were wrapped in living black cocoons of bugs, struggling before collapsing. The final level, 4 frost giant, was covered by tens of thousands of insects. Sickle-like appendages sank in from knees all the way up to its chest. It struggled for half a minute before crashing heavily to the earth. Silence settled over the wasteland. A combat summary panel popped up, enemy forces annihilated. Battle duration, 51 minutes, 40 seconds. Losses, 20,300 blade bugs, 2,600 acid spray bugs, 500 hydralisks, 200 wind plume insects, 5,400 burst bugs. Xin Zhao's projection began to dissipate, yet he turned to glance back at Lin Shi. A long silence stretched before he spoke. I concede this match. He paused. Once I strengthen my frost giants, I will seek another duel. His hologram faded completely. Lin Shi exited the battlefield and glanced at his profile. Silver tier 2, progress 1 out of 5. He leaned back in his chair and stared toward the ceiling, mentally replaying every step of the fight. With 5 cerebrates dividing command duties, 6 blade bug detachments executing diversionary maneuvers, hydralisk fire on both flanks, and wind plume insect strikes from above, orders reached every single insect without delay. It was something impossible in past battles where hundreds of thousands of bugs had fought as one undifferentiated mass. Every new unit had seen combat testing. Hydralisks dealt solid damage, outperforming acid spray bugs. Wind plume insects paired with burst bugs formed a devastating finishing tactic that eliminated half the enemy in one strike. The 30,000 blade bugs had lost 20,000. Their value lay purely in overwhelming numbers. The base, grade chitin of older insect units was practically paper against level 3 and 4 foes. Unit evolution and leveling needed to become a priority. Outside his window, Qingchuan City's night lights still glowed. Deep within his divine realm, 340,000 insects moved busily within the nests. For the next 7 days, Lin Shi's life returned to a rigid, clock-work rhythm. Classes filled his days. Battle, net duels consumed his evenings. From April 2nd to April 8th, he won 9 consecutive matches. His promotion series for Silver Tier 1 went smoothly. In one fight against a beast, Tamer Summoner, aerial burst bug drops wiped the opposition in a single strike. Against heavy cavalry, Hydralisks targeted leg joints for crippling blows before blade bugs mopped up. On a poison, fog marsh map, acid spray bugs saturated the terrain. His foe never even caught sight of his main force. In his final series match against flying familiars, wind plume insects engaged in open-air combat, using sonic waves to shatter enemy flight formations and send foes plummeting. Upon winning his 5th series match, he hit max progress Silver Tier 1. Beyond that lay Gold Tier. Over those 7 days, the insect swarm had not remained idle. Hatching chambers operated around the clock. Total swarm strength swelled to more than 440,000. Wind plume insects numbered 16,000, Hydralisks 18,000, burst bugs 40,000. A 6th Cerebrate also finished its hatching. On the night of April 8th, his Gold Tier promotion match began. The match, making result loaded. Lin Shi scanned the opponent profile. Lu Mingxi, Senior, 3, Magic City No. 1 High School. S. Rank talent. Familiar. Sun Elves. S. Rank. The highest talent Lin Shi had witnessed in Qingchuan City was B. Rank. He had fought an A. Rank before, Pei Jin's half-dragons, whose scales his swarm had barely been able to scratch. He could scarcely imagine what an S. Rank was capable of. All he knew was that her 3,000 Sun Elves were at minimum level 3. Opponent specs are this formidable. Should I bring more troops? He murmured to himself. Then he looked over his swarm's troop numbers, 440,000 strong. He tapped confirm deployment. 5,000 blade bugs, 50,000 acid spray bugs, 10,000 hydralisks, 10,000 wind plume insects, 40,000 burst bugs, and all 6 cerebrates. This composition ought to suffice, he thought. When battlefield teleportation completed, Lin Shi blinked in surprise. He stood upon a vast plain. Sunlight blazed so intensely it turned white, hot, glinting off every blade of grass. Warm winds rolled golden waves of vegetation toward the horizon. Half-ruined temple pillars jutted up in the distance, shimmering through rising heat haze. Across the field, roughly 3,000 Sun Elves formed their ranks before the temple ruins. Silver, white hair flowed down their figures. Their eyes shone golden. Each held a longbow whose surface glowed with soft luster. Elven archers in the front rank knelt. Those behind drew their bowstrings, arrow tips blazing bright beneath the sun. At the formation's center, 10 robed mages hovered in mid-air. Orbs of light atop their staffs burned like 10 miniature suns. Lin Shi thought, this setup is genuinely lavish. Every unit is level 3 at the lowest, most sit at level 4, and quite a few are level 5. Could those 10 mages actually be level 6? 160,000 against 3,000. By raw numbers, on this vibrant, teeming battlefield, the advantage belonged firmly to him. He only feared the enemy might turn the tables unexpectedly. Lu Mingxi's holographic projection floated above the elven host. The girl appeared even younger than Lin Shi, with a high ponytail whose tips glowed pale gold. She tilted her head, observing the surging black insect tide. There was no trace of nervousness on her features, only curiosity, as if inspecting some novel toy. So you are the swarm, tactic prodigy everyone on Battle.net has been talking about. Her voice carried clearly across the field. The one with 30 straight wins. Lin Shi gave a wordless nod. I've heard plenty about your bug swarms. One of my classmates lost to you. She smiled, eyes crinkling. Come, let us see how my Sun Elves measure up against your insects. Combat commenced. Elven defenders immediately assumed a fortified battle formation. Blade bugs began their charge. 50,000 blade bugs shot forward in multiple prongs, a dense black flood hugging the grass as they advanced. 200 meters from the elven lines, the elven mages acted. 10 staffs lifted simultaneously. 10 streams of pale, gold light hammered down from the sky, detonating within the insect ranks. Shock. Waves of holy power rippled outward. Turf ripped up, soil churned, and blade bugs were sent flying by the hundreds, their chitin reduced to fine dust. A rain of arrows descended immediately after. Thousands of longbows loosed at once. Arrows wreathed in white light formed a glistening inverted curtain crashing down. By the time the first wave of blade bugs covered 200 meters, half their numbers lay dead. When they reached 100 meters, only a quarter remained. At 50-meter range, the mages raised their staffs once more. A sheet of searing pale, gold fire spread over the ground. The last surviving blade bugs writhed in the flames and never rose again. 20,000 blade bugs wiped out. Lu Mingxi hovered above her formation, her expression barely shifting. She merely blinked, as though watching a moderately diverting performance. Lin Shi's expression darkened. He had never suffered such lopsided losses on battle. Net. He signaled for wind plume insects to take flight. 3,000 wind plume insects, each carrying for burst bugs, rose through the heat haze and circled toward the elven formation's flanks. Yet at that very moment, 3,000 elven bows turned skyward. The sound of bow, strings releasing merged into one continuous whisper, like wind sweeping grass blades. The first volley pierced hundreds of wind plume insects through their wings. Their burst bug cargo detonated mid-air, bursting into clouds of sickly green flame. A second volley cut down hundreds more. Wind plume insects clawed for higher altitude, but arrows pursued them unerringly. Every shot found its mark. Sun elf arrows flew as though guided by sight. 10,000 burst bugs never even brushed in elf's robes. They exploded high above the ground together with their carrier insects. Lu Mingxi watched the aerial display of destruction, the corners of her mouth lifting faintly. She looked down toward Lin Shi, her gaze faintly condescending. Air assaults fail as well. What else do you have? Hydralisks. 10,000 hydralisks deployed along both flanks, sending streams of poisoned barbs arcing forward. Sun elf archers scattered. Return arrow, fire outranged and out, accurate the hydralisk barbs. Many hydralisks were pinned to the ground before they could even fire their spines. With no other options left, Lin Shi opened all 6 Cerebrate command links to full capacity. Initiate general assault. First, the entire insect host formed a wide ring, encircling the elven formation. Then every available unit pressed inward, spreading to divide elven fire as much as possible. Acid, spray bugs advanced to point, blank range and sprayed corrosive fluid. Hydralisks pushed forward through arrow storms. Wind plume insects dove low. Burst bugs rolled across the ground into elven ranks. The bug, C finally made physical contact. For a brief moment, the tide of battle shifted. Sun elves were no slouches in close quarters combat. Archers drew short swords from their waists. Mages conjured luminous defensive barriers. But there were simply too many insects. Layer upon layer, elves were seized by the ankles, dragged down, and swallowed by swarms. Elf warriors fell one after another. Insect casualties mounted even faster. Arrows, holy magic, and sword strokes cut down hundreds of bugs every second. 160,000 insects melted away like snow beneath sunlight. It ultimately cost more than 1,000 blade bugs to kill the last mana, depleted robed mage. By that point, merely over 300 insects remained functional. Lu Mingxi's projection hovered above the ruined battlefield. She gazed over the carpet of black insect wreckage below, then lifted her eyes toward Lin Shi. After a long pause, she spoke. You nearly won. Nearly is not victory. The final handful of surviving insects were picked off one by distant elven archers. When the last blade bug collapsed, the combat result panel popped up. Match defeat. Duration, 1 hour, 12 minutes. Enemy remaining strength, over 300 sun elves. Friendly forces, total annihilation. Lin Shi exited the battlefield and stared at the word defeat, displayed on his screen for a long while. His 30-match win streak was broken. His gold tier promotion series had failed. To attempt promotion once more, he would need 2 additional victories. He leaned back against his chair. Moonlight streamed in through the window. Closing his eyes, he mentally replayed the entire battle step by step, cataloging every mistake he had made. Deep in his divine realm, more than 400,000 insects continued their routines within the nests. Some gnawed at chitin, others laid eggs. They were entirely unaware their summoner had just lost a hard-fought duel.